All right, we are live. Welcome to the September 12th, 2024 meeting of Queens Community Board 2. Let us get started with the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United Awesome, thank you. Just a reminder, I forgot to have the weight rules in front of me, WAIT, but that's the golden rule. Why am I talking? Just consider whether what you wanted to say has been said, and let others, just be mindful with the time and the money. Let us get started with, I don't see any elected officials right now, but we'll get started with the reps of the elected officials, 2 minutes each. And starting with I'm gonna go with the sheet. Okay, Evelyn came in first. Okay. Evelyn, come on.
Right. Hi everyone, I will keep it very short. I'm Emily from Congressman Graceman's office. Hope everyone had a wonderful summer. And like I said, I'll keep it short because we are still gearing up for what's gonna be very busy a few months. But so far we do have one upcoming event which is gonna happen in October 15th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. is our next Veteran Affair Intake Day, which means already our rep from the VA will come over to VFW Post 551 and help our veterans to apply for benefits and help them with any questions they may have. The address is 61-55 69th Street, Middle Village, Y11379. And I will be back there. If you have any questions, please let me know. Thank you.
Before time, wow. You have a competition. Right? I think next was Tiffany. Yep.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Sunnyside, CB2. Welcome back. I'm excited to be back and have a nice, long, hard working session with you guys. Just wanted to give quick updates for some summer legislation that the Congresswoman had sponsored. One of them is called the Texture Protected Act, which is basically directing the Secretary of Labor to kind of give grants to agencies that have cosmetology services for textured hair. These services will develop training on how to shampoo, condition, and style textured hair. Another one is called the Liver Illness Visibility Education and Research Act. This bill was sponsored because she knows that there have been over 40,000 people that have been diagnosed with liver illnesses and 29,000 have died because of these illnesses last year. So we need more research on that specifically. Why is the liver developing in a really bad way with these illnesses? So that is what has been introduced this summer. All right, I'll try to make this one quick. So on August 1st, the Congresswoman held an event at LaGuardia Community College to discuss FinCEN. Again, I want to thank CB2 Chair and CB2 Chairperson for Small Business Committee, Maureen, to coming to us to say, hey, like, this is something that the community needs to know. Just to keep it short, the law is called the Corporate Transparency Act, and it is basically requiring all small businesses to report who is the owner of their small businesses. All of the information is here because it's a lot, and I know I have a short amount of time, but I have some in the back and in the front, and I'll also be right there if you want to have a little chat. But it's very detailed. Please take your time to look over it. The deadline is January 1st of 2025. Again, it'll be, I'm keeping it short, but this is what the website looks like, and I have flyers in the back and in the front as well. Any questions, give me a call, email, and I'll be right there too. So yeah, any questions? Good. All right, see you guys.
Thank you, Tiffany. Next is Mercedes.
Good evening, CB2. Again, thank you so much for having me here today, representing State Senator Michael Gianaris' office. My name is Mercedes Jennings. I'm the community liaison. Just want to give a few updates. State Senator Michael Gianaris was actually present on Sunday with June Wan's office to pay homage and honor to Anne Cotton Morris. It was the street was 50th Street and 31st Avenue was renamed after her. He also presented a special bio that was posted in Albany for the past year and a half, because she was our 2023 Woman of Distinction for our district. So it was a great honor to be there. In addition to that, the senator had started doing a Real ID DMV event. He did one in Mascot on this past Saturday, and he'll be doing another one at the Broadway Library on September 26th from 1 to 4 p.m. The reason why he decided to do this was because in 2025, if you like to fly domestically or drive to Canada or Mexico, you need a real ID. So he had provided a relationship with the DMV to provide that service for people that really need it. So definitely come out and get access to that service. Other than that, I am here as a resource and support. Please feel free to contact our office. We're still located at 4502 Ditmars Boulevard. And I left cards over here if you need to contact our office for anything. Thank you.
Thank you, Mercedes. Next is Kat. Oh yeah, Stephen Raga. Raga. That's an in joke for many hundreds of people.
Good evening, everybody. Good to see you. Hope you had a good, relaxing summer. I'd be jealous if you did. But for the staff and for the folks up here, I'm sure it was not stop anyway. So thank you for your continued hard work. I don't think I've been here since the new members might have been. I was stuck in Albany and he was there for half a year. But for those who I've not met, so at the eastern part of CB2 on Queens Boulevard around 54th Street eastward on Roosevelt around 58th Street eastward. So I'll go ahead and give some updates we have from the summer. So a few of events we had. So I think we talked about Iran to get here and they threw me up here. We had 4 community cleanups over the summer across our district. The next 2 will have one in September and also October. I think they're locking down the September date. They'll both be in the CB2 jurisdiction, both in Woodside. In the last few weeks, we've been able to distribute over 400 school supplies and backpacks across our district, thanks to partners like Queens Public Library, Queens Center Mall, Carpenters Union, and District Attorney Melinda Katz. Thanks for her office as well. We've hosted 20 mobile office hour sessions across our district. We're in Mascot, right in the you need to get to Q18. That's going to take you another 12 hour to get there. What's that? So we try to be accessible as most as we can. When when spring, winter, and fall, we try to be out there in high traffic areas. So far, I've been there for 20 times over the summer. Usually within CB2, you're looking at 61st and Roosevelt, and also I'd say Northern Boulevard to area. We've had 3 community workshops over this summer. We had a mental health session with NAMI for mental health awareness month. We had a legal clinic for our tenants with community resist that we had a monthly session for, and an intake with NHS of Queens and Woodside for section 8. And we've had 2 radar giveaway events. We both distributed over 125 each time. Our second one was with the offices of Councilmember Julie Vaughn and Sarah Gianaris. So thank you to their office for their partnership. And also get a paper shredding this fall. And for the first time, we had a youth appreciation day in August. We tried to do it last year, but it was we thought it was a bit late, too quick of a turnaround, so we have one, and to honor, youth leaders in our district between the ages of 15 to 25, for their contribution even early in their career and life. For the fall, our team's priorities are continuing, are prioritizing our constituent cases, but also addressing health services in the district. This is our second year in office, but it's our second year working with Weill Cornell Medicine to help us do studies on within our Selma district regarding air quality and its relationship to what extent there's disproportionate impact on youth and their quality of lungs, asthma rates, all of that. So we're trying to work with them to see to what extent we can go ahead and submit any legislation to the upcoming session this January. We have a few upcoming events this Saturday. Actually, in Woodside, we have our second annual health fair. This is going to be on Woodside Avenue and 61st. So right in front of like Adamanelli's. It's going to be there from 12 to 3. Saturday the 28th, we're going to Saturday, September 28th, we're going to be hosting our second annual Hispanic Heritage Month. This will be in the Worldsboro Bookshop. This one is in Jackson Heights. And we will be hosting our a workshop for nonprofits. So this is in regard if you're trying to obtain your 501c3, if you're already a 501c3 and you want to make sure you're within the guidelines of making sure your nonprofit is in a healthy state. We're going to have a nonprofit attorneys there. That's going to be on Saturday. I think Saturday the 28th or first week of October. We'll finalize that for you guys. I know on this board, there's been questions on, or there's members who are inquiring regarding how can nonprofits get more funding, especially if they're smaller nonprofits, especially if they're volunteer oriented and don't have full-time staff or a person to go find grants and kind of expand the organization. This is a way to kind of answer that because we will also have a piece of that other section regarding how to get grants and overall long-term development of a nonprofit work. For our other community updates, there's been a few fires within our district. We've been working with the Red Cross recently to help install 3 smoke detectors and carbon monoxide alarms. They're free, so always reach out to the Red Cross if that's something you need. I told them I probably need this too, so I went and ordered one. But always feel free to reach out to Red Cross who we're partnering with. They're also looking for volunteers if people want to help them out for that. Our next office hours, remote office hours in Woodside are going to be on September 20th on Woodside Avenue and 59th Street. So we'll be over there. The last bit, although Albany is not happening until won't be until January. A few quick updates on the Black, Puerto Rican, Hispanic, Asian caucus. I'm now on the executive board. I'm serving as a chaplain and also still part of the Puerto Rican Hispanic Task Force and the Asian Pacific American Task Force. In regard to in-district funding, it was we're working on it was a big budget victory. I think we mentioned before on trying to get money for our Michelamas here. The one in our Selma district is the Big 6. So we're trying to help make sure that big allocation is put over there, especially with what's been going on with the increase in their monthlies in the last 12 months. And lastly, happy to report that working with the governor's team, we've been happy or lucky to secure $27.5 million for Elmhurst Hospital. It's kind of distributed between 2 pieces. 7.5 going into the first PICU because they don't have one, a pediatric intensive care unit. Don't have one in the hospital. That was a big priority because folks couldn't in our neighborhoods couldn't. You have to go outside to get that service. And $20 million to the women's pavilion, women's health pavilion. So that's going to be focused on women's healthcare needs, resources, and of course a safe space for folks to interact and doing the programming as well. So I think that's for the most part my update, but any questions?
Being here. My question is about congestion pricing, which was supposed to go into effect on June 29th. It was a law passed by the Senate and the Assembly. The governor decided she wasn't going to follow that law. Was there discussion in Albany about the governor's actions when laws are passed in New York and the governor doesn't execute them? What happens?
There was a lot of discussion on that, especially in the last week of session. So we're like, okay, this is when we left Albany in June, what we were told is there was a possibility of a special session before January of us going up there and discussing this specific issue. I know it's an issue near and dear to a lot of folks in this community board, and especially in not just Western Queens, but in Queens. But I haven't heard anything from Assembly leadership of any updates from an emergency session for now. If there is, we'll make sure to put it out there and let folks know that we're headed up to discuss.
For the transportation committee, several of our subway stations need updating and we need ADA accessible elevators. And that would be part of a capital budget that would be funded by congestion pricing. So it is a very important issue in your district, in our district.
100%. And just on top of that, so to the extent that congestion pricing itself is being delayed in the process, I know a big priority is probably, I don't want to say, I'm not sure, I'm not in leadership that it's to what to say, number one or two, but it's a priority to make sure that money that was supposed to go into the improvements like you mentioned is something we find immediately. So I know that in order to raise the money on the minimum amount needed to bond so that the state can go ahead and get the full total is coming up in a few months. So we're probably going to decide quickly to make sure that's definitely a priority. And if not all Assembly members I talk to is in full support of that.
Okay. Thank you very much for your answer.
Thanks.
Oh, yeah.
Thanks, Laura. Thank you for being here, Assemblymember Raga. I have a public health concern I'd like to raise. In the past, Assemblymember Brian Barnwell had pressure washing cleaning crews that would clean throughout the district.
I know, I was on that crew, I know.
And I'd like an update, given how awful the pigeon dropping situations are in underneath the Long Island Railroad and the subway and the highways. Please, I'd like an update on that.
For sure. Update on
the pressure washing cleaning crews. What happened to them? What are they doing?
What that was Brian bought a pressure wash. And then before I came into office, it was given to somebody. So we never had it. I don't know where it went. So we do not have a pressure washer like Assemblyman Bond. Yeah. We're looking on seeing if we can get or work with an entity and organization that can fund that, because we see it too. Not just we see the droppings on the main corridors, but even the ones that like on the other side of Queens Boulevard or Northern Boulevard, where folks aren't really it's not as frequent that it's being filed out there. But what we're doing also collecting any and all 311 complaints so that we can see that there is a track record of folks in the community bringing this up as an issue, so we could pressure any entities that could help take care of the issue. Because I agree, it's kind of disgusting. Really.
Laura, and then two more.
Hi, Assembly member. Just want to get some clarity. So there is no alternative for congestion pricing that would raise the money, but also achieve all the other benefits that the plan would unlock, including cleaner air and safer streets. We just saw some DEC air quality data for Queens that really shows that air pollution is heavily concentrated along the major highways heading into the central business district. So will you continue to fight to make sure that we're breathing clean air here.
Of course, yes, yes.
Thank you.
No, thank you for coming, of course.
Who's next? Sorry, Corey, board members, official board members, you're a public member of the Transportation Committee. But any board members? No more?
I'll start this.
Did Roz have one?
I think.
Assemblymember,
Hello.
hello. So pleased for your support in the past for street safety issues and putting that in a high place. So what do you see coming up in the future session? I know that there's concerns about getting speed limiters on vehicles that repeated offenders, people who speed a lot.
Yeah.
Got any thoughts on that? Or any other such?
Yeah, I mean, if there's something, if there was legislation on that, we haven't really since, especially since we passed Sammy's on earlier this year. There
Yeah.
hasn't been which thanks to your help, being out there in Albany. There has been discussions on taking the next step on what we can do, like what you had mentioned. But again, I think that's something that's being formalized by the heads of the committees now. I'm not on the transportation committee in
I know.
state, so I don't get the first whiff of what's going on, but I get the second whiff.
So
So
we know you can be
if
very
I-
powerful.
Huh?
You can be very powerful.
So, but once we hear on what's that gonna be, realistically, I don't. Unless there's a special session being brought to Albany. A lot of the new legislation that we discussed, we don't discuss until the first
And-
week of December.
right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I just especially want to emphasize because after our last full board meeting on the last day of school, we had a 16-year-old girl and her sister. 16-year-old girl was killed by the box truck that then injured her sister. And that was right in front of PS, I think it's 125 up here. And yes, and you know, this is a tragedy, obviously, for this family, but it's not the first, nor will it unfortunately be the last such thing. So I just want to keep keep that power up.
100%. Me, my office, our staff, and our partners, and also our clients in government. I think that's a priority. And we have making sure our streets are safer for our families, especially like you mentioned, the children we have here in Western Queens. So for sure, any and all of that, we're in full support, making our streets more safe.
Thank you so much.
Of course.
Anyone else? Going once, going twice? All right, thank you, Assembly Member Raga. Thank you. And next, we have our council member, Julie Won.
Hello, everybody. Happy September. It's so good to see you all. You know, it's kind of like a flash from the past, seeing Assemblymember Raga. I remember when we just called him Steve and we sit right there, me and Steve. And now here we are, and now he's Assemblymember, and I'm really happy to be here in the for our first session back in the fall. So if we haven't already met, my name is Julie Won. I'm the current council member representing Sunnyside, Woodside, Long Island City, and Astoria. We have a lot of updates for you from the summer. I know our district manager, Debbie, has been keeping tabs on everything that's been happening, but just to give you a roundup, over the summer until now, we've distributed over 1,700 backpacks to our students in the district. And thank you so much for those who have donated. We have a lot of really great partners in the district and nonprofits. And we still actually have backpacks still in our office if you know of any student that needs one or any family. We also make sure that we distribute not only in our public housing units, as well as our shelters. We also make sure that our schools, every single one of them, are contacted to make sure that they know that we can donate school backpacks to them as well. We also just gave away 100 rain barrels in partnership with Assemblymember Raga and Senator Gianaris' office. And we hosted several movie nights this summer in partnership with parks in our public parks. For legislation, we have two really important hearings coming up. If you're interested, I'm the chair of Contracts Committee. We are having a hearing on September 30th on school bus contracts with Department of Education, now known as New York City Schools. And we also have another hearing coming up in October in partnership with the Committee on Contracts, the Committee on Small Business Services, as well as the Committee on DSNY, Department of Sanitation, on the new containerization requirements in our city. A lot of those who are homeowners and our bids have raised a lot of questions. If you have any questions, feel free to come to our office and ask us questions, and if you haven't already received a mailer directly from DSNY, we'll connect you to them and come to the hearing, especially if you are trying to figure out how to pay for these containers yourself. Next, for budget, our budget passed in June, and we fought really hard to ensure that a lot of things that we were fighting for, like CUNY, libraries, parks, schools, got their funding. We allocated something that's new, and we'll have a newsletter that goes out to all of you guys in the fall to have the itemized breakdowns, and we'll have it on our website as well as we continue to allocate it. We allocated an additional $43,000 for weekly rat mitigation services in the district. I know that we've had a lot of rodent issues. If you have specific areas in our district where you are seeing a high amount of rodents, please email us or call us and let us know. Then we still have ACE doing some of the underpasses where we've gotten a lot of complaints. And we also are going to make sure that we have better bins. You've been seeing them all over Queens Boulevard. We're getting them in other parts of the district as well as a delivery comes in. We also were able to get these new containerization bins for Lulodati for the Green Market area, since we're seeing a lot of trash there, and Noonan, because we're also seeing a lot of trash there. And those will be delivered sometime this year. We're trying to track down exactly when that will be procured. Also, participatory budgeting is back. Thank you so much for all that participated. Last fiscal cycle, we were the #1 engaged in all of Queens. So thank you so much for doing that. But no one's surprised. We are the best. So we're currently collecting new ideas now and have pamphlets here where you can submit ideas to, and also you can volunteer to be a delegate to help put together a ballot. Also, if you missed it, I had my second baby. I think the last time I was here, I was very pregnant. Thank you. Thank you. He is 6 months old now, but many of you, I know, are parents and aunties and neighbors. If you know anyone 14 years and older and you think that they have a lot of great ideas where they walk down with you and they're like, Mom, there needs to be a new dog park here. Or Mom, there needs to be a new bench there, or Grandma, or Grandpa, Uncle, neighbor, whatever. So a lot of students in our district have a lot of great ideas, and they have an eye for a lot of physical infrastructure that needs upgrades and improvements. Please send them our way, because not only can you vote, but you can also become a budget delegate. And that will also give them a head start on learning how the city budget process works, so that when they get their first job at that ice cream shop or wherever it may be, and they're paying taxes, they'll know how and where to use those taxpayer dollars. And we're getting some mood lighting here. Yes, I know. We need to get more funding over here for Sunnyside Community Services. So capital versus expense. If you're new to participatory budgeting, capital, so for our participatory budgeting process, it is only for capital funding, which means that it's for physical, long-term investments in facilities, infrastructure, as opposed to expense, which is what covers programming, services, and activities. So an example of an expense fund would be a basketball court, making sure that we're upgrading it. And an example of that's capital, and an expense example for the funding would be the Basketball Youth League, which would require service funding. So to give you examples from last cycle for participatory budgeting, some ideas that we were really not only taking care of our street trees with Big Reuse, our partners, and also making sure that we're planting new trees, curb cuts to make sure that we are ADA accessible, bus countdown meters. Those are always great because those of us who rely on public transit, we want to make sure when we know when the bus is coming our way. and cameras that capture dumping in key areas of the district. Okay, I'm gonna stop here for a second. Any questions so far about participatory budgeting or about constituent service updates or legislative work? Okay. Yes. Yeah, I still have updates, as you can see.
Okay,
My team.
you might be updating on this. On the Queensboro Plaza train station.
Yep.
So all summer, one entrance was closed,
Yep.
causing a lot of people crossing Queensboro Plaza not very safely. And then it was reopened in time for the US Open, interestingly. And just today, now the other side is closed. I'm hoping that's just because they're building a tower there, but I fear it might not be. Can something be done? So, because people are literally, what happens is the light changes and people are like standing and they're pushed into the street because there's so many people. It's just not safe. And then the other thing on the north side, that construction is making that a holy mess. Like the fence is on the sidewalk. It's really hard to walk. It's just a bad situation.
Understood.
Yeah.
So luckily, we have our friend over here and our best assembly member, Stephen Raga, who oversees the MTA. And we will make sure that we work with our state partners, with DOT and MTA, to make sure that we're giving proper notifications, signage is placed, and that we are looking to make sure that the elevators that were announced were functioning. Yes.
It's there, like I can see it, but the scaffolding is still up. So
Okay.
I'm sort of questioning if it's about that other building and not the elevator is the problem.
Okay, so we'll look also into DOB's building permits to see what's going on with the construction, and then we'll also work with MTA to figure out a timeline and a schedule of when that scaffolding will open and there will be proper accessible use of those things. Okay,
Thank you.
no problem. So I know that our vice chair, executive board member Roz, Dr. Roz, trying to remember everyone's positions now. You had brought up Jael Zihin. So that is a 16-year-old, very, very badly injuring her 8-year-old sister right outside of IS 125. DOT did come and do a walkthrough with us with the Queens Commissioner and her team. And the Queens Commissioner's office is exploring additional safety measures. On Monday, in partnership with Transportation Alternatives and Families for Safe Streets, there was a press conference held calling on DOT to work faster to make this intersection and other intersections near this school safe, because we've had multiple crashes there and fatalities. We will be introducing a bill for universal daylighting in the coming weeks. Woo! Thank you for your advocacy, and thank you to Isaac Blazenstein, our legislative and land use director sitting in the back, and local Sunnyside resident who lives like 2 blocks away from where these crashes happened, unfortunately. And also, last but not least, the most important topic of why I have been summoned here tonight, One LIC. Okay, so we have our friends also from DCP here, because I know that there's a lot of questions, and this is really good. This is one of the best parts of why we have such a healthy and strong civically engaged community board and community at large. But it's no surprise of Queens every single year. So I'm really thankful for our community. I know, claps for that. So for all of us, so tonight you're going to be voting on the draft scope of work testimony that will guide our environmental review. What we are used to is a regular ULURP rezoning, where typically we would have these kind of votes after certification. We are nowhere near that. Maybe next spring, we will go into certification to start a ULURP. So right now, there isn't a rezoning. Right now, we're doing the study for a potential rezoning in the future. I'm gonna let that be processed first. Secondly, we want to make sure that we are understanding that right now, the draft scope of work is, because it isn't in certification, that draft is only exactly what it's called, the scope of work of what is going to be studied. The scope of work traditionally throughout the city is what they use as a benchmark or threshold of what they are forecasting to be studied for future analysis, which not DCWP, but DCP is here that will expand on, and they are more than willing to continue to meet with the land use committee as well as the community board at large to answer these questions. What we've experienced, I know that this is extremely triggering. Like I see all of you having facial triggering moments like, oh my gosh, the word rezoning is like the heebie-jeebies here where we feel like a dark cloud is over us because it's happened to us so many times. And for all of us that have to live here, I'm a renter. I know most of my district is our renters. And as renters, we want to make sure that this district is somewhere we can continue to call home for many generations on, especially within our lifetime. And for all of us to do that, we have two choices. And what I've heard over and over again, especially from this community board, which has been written in request to do comprehensive planning and neighborhood studies, we were able to get to this point, which is still maybe like 30% of what we have a long journey to go through. We have many ULURP applications that landlords and developers have been trying to apply for. And instead of doing them one by one, as you typically do, we're doing that comprehensively. So that way we can make sure that we're properly analyzing and planning to make sure that there's sewage infrastructure, schools, transportation needs met, etc. So that way we're looking at holistically instead of doing piecemeal zoning where we only require by law for the landlord to do one block upgrades or only the lots of land that they're rezoning to be upgraded for plumbing, sewage infrastructure, etc. So for all of us, this is the first time we're doing it. And it is scary. It's going to be a lot of energy and time, but I thank you because many of you have come to testify in person, to participate in the engagement sessions. We've now collected more than 2,300 feedback from the community, but we have a long way to go because this is only before the scoping has even begun and even before certification. And once the environmental study is complete, next year, sometime in the spring or later, when we go into certification, that's when you're going to go through the same ULURP process that you're normally used to, where you're going to have 30 days for the community board to review the draft of whatever you get, you then get 30 days to vote on it. What you're voting on today is not really voting. It should not be thought of as voting down a project or not, because we're not even there yet. What you're voting on is the draft of what we're trying to study so that we can determine how many schools do we need, how many more bus stops do we need, or whatever else it may be, park space, green space, sewage infrastructure upgrades, and other social needs in addition to whatever is happening. But the capital process and the policy changes come after certification, which is why I think it's great that you guys are calling for infrastructure upgrades. And I would request that you name what you want to see. The more specific and more details you put in, the more helpful it is for all of us on the city side to really get granular to think about what your priorities are. But this is not the end, and this is just the beginning. We're going to have not only the community boards town hall, where you're going to have your hearing for the community board, you'll have the CPC hearing, you'll have the Queensborough President's hearing, you'll have the city council hearing. But in addition to that, which is the typical ULURP process, we're also going to have specific workshops, engagement sessions, and more outreach done throughout the district to get even more feedback. So really, we have gone from 30 days of feedback in the community board to now over a 2-year span of time to make sure that what we're doing is something that is reflective of our district and the feedback that you provide us. And it is a very long and lengthy process because this is something that we've been requesting and that we really need in our whole city so that we're not going through multiple ULURPs a year of piecemeal zonings that are that are not in conjunction with each other because the landlord gets to do what he really wants. It's really a landlord-driven process instead of a community-driven process, which is what we're trying to create here so that we can replicate it in our district and throughout the city. I can answer, I think it's probably better to answer questions.
Yeah, in the interest of time, please, I'll take 5 questions for Julie, starting with Tom over there.
Councilmember, thank you. Appreciate the feedback you just received. It gives me new hope about us spending time together the next year. My question today relates to an issue that we first brought up 17 months ago and has been left unanswered since, not by you, but by an agency that you can monitor, which is DEP. We have an issue affecting life and property in Blissville as it relates to unprecedented sewer overflows since 2023, affecting many homes and businesses in Blissville, primarily on 37th Street. This past summer, I did more research and studied the sewer system. So number one, all of them, but many of them must come through Blissville on its way through the sump pump area on its way to Bowery Bay. So all of that water, stormwater and sewage, plus the stormwater and sewage in Blissville, must then go through the Borden Avenue pump station. We only started experiencing these unprecedented sewer overflows in 2023. The exact same time, the Borden Avenue pump station went under renovation. To me, 1 + 1 = 2. We need your continued advocacy and we need to meet with DEP. This is harming our property. It is harming life. Having raw sewage come up in your basement. It's not a good thing. Please help us, council member.
Yeah, thank you so much, Tom. You know, I cannot think of a better advocate than Tom Matusas, who has the perseverance of the whole entire community board combined. He sends us a lot of letters and that takes a lot of effort and energy and time. So thank you for being such a strong advocate. We're seeing this all throughout the city and especially in our district, because in Sunnyside, when I lived at Phipps, it would happen all the time when I lived on the ground floor, where we get sewage backflow, where we know for sure, I mean, we want to do these studies so that way we have the facts to say, okay, the study shows XYZ areas really need to make sure that are prioritized. But in addition to that, when we want to visit the DEP's headquarters or their commanding center for Queens, we saw that they prioritize their capital budget every single year by the number of complaints. So as annoying as 311 is, 311's data points are used as indicators on what gets prioritized of where we spend our taxpayer dollars throughout Queens. Because our sewage infrastructure, actually out of 5 boroughs, has had the least amount of investment in the whole entire city, even after Staten Island. Yeah. Historic. Yeah, you definitely have more complaints than some of the other areas. Yeah.
Be heard because of our small population.
Right. And I agree with you. And we want to make sure, because I always give the example of we had an actual family drown to death.
Yes,
in this.
yes.
And we really need the infrastructure investments.
And what was very disappointing, if I may, last week, the mayor came out with this whole thing about what he's doing with sewers. Not one thing about any of our concerns. I no details,
But you
nothing.
know, but I think he's also
Thank
busy
you.
right now with other investigations. But we will definitely follow up. Isaac and I.
Block lawns and lay down the street in front of DEP. That's where we're.
Yeah, we can request to, the funny thing is, we have to make sure that we get the commissioner here when it rains. And unfortunately, I do not have those superpowers where I'm like, it's gonna rain tomorrow, I could tell. But if you do, and you feel pretty sure, I think we can work together to make sure that we get them out every time it rains. Because that's what we've been trying to do in hot spots of our districts, yeah.
I appreciate others in the district are experiencing this, but this past summer, rainstorms that we would never feel anything. We
Right.
had 5 major incidents in Blissville with sewer water coming up 2 feet in basements. I guarantee I didn't hear anyone else experiencing that. I think there's a correlation again between the work they're doing at the pump station, which started in 2023, and our sewer overflows. We need this addressed. Thank you.
Okay. So we will follow up. Isaac and I will take notes of your feedback, and the next time it rains, when we try to get him out here, Blissville will be our first stop. Yeah, so we'll work with you to try to get him in here when it rains, and we'll follow up to make sure you have an inspection, et cetera, to have a synthesis done. And I just also want to make sure that I think there's a lot of questions, but one thing I really wanted to make sure that I address here is that a dispo action is needed to transfer public property to any entity, and this is required by the city's charter. So the special thing about this project is that it has public land, whether that become parks, whether it becomes a land trust, whether it becomes affordable housing, whatever it may be. Currently, it does not mean that this dispo action study, it has to go through a legal process after the dispo action of the study. Then there will be an RFP released to make sure that it goes through a very ethical process, because we know that otherwise you get raided by the FBI when you do things that are not ethical and not followed on the papers. Yes, so I want to make sure that that was public, and I know that we also get a lot of questions about vacancy. HPD also got back to us that vacancy rate has dropped from 4.48 to below 1% from 2001 to 2023. And even the vice president has been speaking very clearly on the housing shortage in our city, in our country, everywhere. So we in our district are hyper-focused on making sure that we're looking at low AMIs, high family units, maximizing the number of affordable units as possible. But I want to make sure that that's put out there. Hi, over here,
Leticia, and then one more, please.
Right here.
Right there.
Hi. I'm a parent of a student that goes to IS 429. He's been there now on the 2nd year. And there's more students now, you know, with the co-location of the high school. You have now a 6th grade and a 7th grade. There's more students. And so we need a crossing guard, and we need your help. Because a lot of them, not only are they traveling up to Queens Boulevard, but they're also traveling towards Northern Boulevard. So we need crossing guards going both directions. And then the second part to that is we also need support in the area with the Long Island Railroad, the pigeon feces cleaned up and maintained frequently. And also I passed by maybe on Tuesday, the weeds that grow out next to the BJ's. It's hard for people to walk on that side, and that's on the side of the school. And so that can also be cleaned up, because if not, then the students have to cross the street, and those cars are not patient at all. Like, they honk at the kids, and it's really frustrating. And, you know, and these are kids, you know, they're trying to cross the street. So yeah, we need your help.
Yes, I feel you definitely as a fellow mom and as someone who used to live off of Barnett. So for any sort of litter cleanup, if you could just email our office, we'll send a team out there. We fund them for more than $200,000 to clean up the whole entire district, because one of the highest number of complaints we get is cleanliness of the streets. So we are specifically paying for folks to clean our public streets. For the actual, like, taking care of the bushes and such like that, I believe because it's the Long Island Railroad, that's state's jurisdiction. I think we lost our state assembly member, Stephen Raga. There he is. So we'll work with assembly member's office to make sure that we're working with the Long Island Railroad and the MTA and potentially the feds as well, to make sure that that's taken care of. Unfortunately, ACE, who we partner with to do all the cleanups, the graffiti removal, and rat mitigation, they can't do the cutting of bushes and such, because you have to have certain licenses and things like that, and they can't do that part. But we'll also work on the crossing guards, because there seems to be a shortage in the whole city. So Isaac and I will also look into figuring out, because there's also a lot of tension with those crossing guards. I believe they're also part of the NYPD's budget, and we don't want to further increase their budget, and we have to figure out how to work with what's currently budgeted, if not decrease it and reallocate it and all kinds of stuff. So it's been a little hairy, and I think that's why we haven't made any progress the last few years on, because we make these requests to have increased crossing guards. So we'll look into that again, and maybe it's worthwhile for me to have another hearing, because I'm having a hearing on school bus contracts, and as chair of contracts, I can look at the contracts. And I know that some of the unions have reached out as well, because those crossing guards are all unionized, to really figure out how we remedy this issue, because children need to be safe when they're walking home, especially as many folks I know right here are starting to sign off waivers to allow kids to walk home alone, and we want to make sure that they're safe. So thank you for raising that. Yes.
More, please.
I have one too.
Yeah, go ahead. And, oh, okay, so
Anyone else?
Carlos, you are last.
Okay. Just on the bus hearing, it reminded me that the city actually has a mandate to electrify all of its school buses by 2035. And I know the contracts that they have with all the bus companies is a mess. So I don't know actually how they're going to do that. It would be great to hear from, I'm assuming it's the DOE who's testifying, what their plan is at this point. We're almost 10 years away, and how they're going to kind of get to that point, because I think they have a few electric buses, but there's not a lot on the road right now.
Fun fact, the school bus contracts are kind of like a mafia in New York City, historically are owned by one company. And they, even when de Blasio tried to put the trackers on the buses for GPS and like real-time tracking of where our children are, they still have not been installed. So that is kind of the truth of what we're dealing with, but that's what we're here for. We're here to provide transparency and accountability. So I will definitely make sure that we press on that of what's really going on with the promises that were made.
Thank you.
Sorry, it's for board members, but please feel free to ask Isaac a question or catch the council member on their way out. In the interest of time, I think we'll end it there. Thank you so much, Councilmember One.
Yes. And I just want to continue to acknowledge, I know that we're sitting in a lot of tension, a lot of questions, and a lot of discomfort, because rezonings are hard, rezonings are crappy. And I want to make sure that you know that I'm available. I'm here to have any private meetings, public meetings. I want to make sure that DCP is available to you to answer questions, make sure that we're all working together to make sure you really feel like you're being heard, because I know that it's many, many years of feeling like we've been bulldozed physically and literally over. So thank you so much. And I look forward to talking to you soon.
All right, thank you, Councilmember One. We'll go back to the representatives of our elected officials. Next is Catherine from Krista Gonzalez's office. Feel free to take it out.
Good evening. A couple updates on behalf of Senator Gonzalez's office. The first is that, and the senator wouldn't brag about this herself, but made the cover of City and State's 40 Under 40. So that was a fun moment this month. In addition, joined the One LIC scoping meeting on September 12th. To call for an inclusion of the maximum amount of housing, of deeply affordable housing in this plan, as well as essential infrastructure upgrades and a fully connected, accessible waterfront, including plentiful green space and climate resilient infrastructure. In addition, this month we gave away 1,200 backpacks to students in Astoria houses, Queensbridge houses, Ravenswood, and working with a variety of Boys and Girls Club, as well as the William Hallett School, working with students in temporary housing, and many elected offices, including Councilmember Wan's office, Councilmember Mondani's office, and Councilmember Tiffany Cavan's office. In addition, we also celebrated the graduation of the Green City Force cohort and are excited for their work in sustainability in our communities, and joined the MTA to celebrate the end of the Phase 3 G-Train improvements and the reopening of the G-Train from Court Square to Church Street, and to advocate for more modernization across our system and MTA upgrades. Finally, we're looking into the Midtown Tunnel and working with city agencies to understand what happened, and requiring city and state agencies to find out what happened and what safeguards we can put in place to make sure that we maintain this crucial infrastructure in our 3-borough district. Legislatively, we are working very hard to get the governor to sign many of our bills, especially the Loading Act, which regulates the government use of AI and implements important labor protections for state workers. Sorry, and just lastly, our other bill is a fight against excessive noise from non-essential helicopter and seaplanes that affects both, both sides of our district in Queens and Manhattan. So, yeah.
Any questions? Riley?
Thank you. Just to repeat what I said to Assemblymember Raga, that we need a champion in Albany for congestion pricing. The governor can't just decide not to execute a passed law. We live on the waterfront. We live in a highly polluted area from air pollution and pollution from traffic tires and things. And then we all rely on the subways. So I don't want to just hear that we're waiting for the governor to do something. I want to hear champions for us in our communities.
Yes. Well, the governor, not the governor, but the senator fully supports congestion pricing. And yes, I think for us, it's, we want to do everything we can. Right now, the legislature has done everything they can. They passed a law in 2019. Like we supported like the implementation of this, and as much as we want to do whatever we can as champions, we're really right now, it's the governor has held it up. So I think, yes, we are champions. We will do everything we can to see congestion pricing implemented. And yeah.
No, yeah, I get it. But it also affects public opinion of politics when we put people in office, we ask them to pass these laws, they pass these laws, and then the laws don't happen. So it's a broad issue. It's a very, very big issue, and it can't just be pushed. So we appreciate the state senator.
Okay.
Yeah, that AI and employment thing is very cool and very necessary. Claire from Borough President Richard's office.
Hey, everybody. You hear me? Okay. Welcome back. Hope everyone had a good summer. My name is Claire Collins. I'm the Community Board 2 liaison for Queensborough President Donovan Richards. I also live in Sunnyside. I walked here. All right. So first, I want to let everybody know that the 2024 Community Board Demographic Report is available on our website, which is queensbp.nyc.gov. It used to be .org, but now it's .gov. So note that. So this report gives a summary of this year's class of appointees, and it gives a full explanation of the demographic breakdown throughout the borough. We also have events coming up. So quickly, Tuesday, September 17th at 6 p.m., we're having the Mexican Independence Day celebration at Queensborough Hall. And on Saturday, September 28th, we're having the Queens Climate Expo at the Hall of Science beginning at 4 p.m. And then on the same day, we're hosting a young adult professional mixer at Kiko Studios at 6 p.m. Lastly, on Monday, September 30th at 5 p.m., we have the Queens High School Fair to wrap up the month. And then you can RSVP to all of our events on our website, queensbp.nyc.gov.
Okay, you guys have questions, right? I feel like you guys always have questions. No? Oh, okay, cool.
Javier, you got timing competition today. Javier's next.
Good evening, everyone. So my name is Javier from the District Attorney's Office. The District Attorney has been hard at work over the summer. I'm going to highlight two things. So District Attorney Katz was in Sunnyside this past June when she shut down an illegal cannabis dispensary that was operating out of a converted school bus on the corner of 43rd and Queens Boulevard. The items seized were marketing towards children, and they contained popular candy names such as Skittles, Jolly Ranchers, and Warheads. Next. District Attorney Katz has also finalized her RFPs or request for proposals for youth development and crime prevention programs. It's in the DA's approach to implement a more holistic and community-based effort to keep our youth out of the criminal justice system through academic, career, or recreational or social activities. So here in CB2, District Attorney Katz has given $100,000 or $50,000 a year to the Sunnyside Community Services Center in Woodside houses to implement various youth development programs to not only engage with our youth, but most of all, to keep them out of our criminal justice system. And that's all the announcements I have. I'll take any questions. No. All right. And I'm going to, if you see me run out early, I have another community board, but I'm here every month. So if you have any questions, just find me. Thank you.
Still a minute, still pretty good. Thank you, Javier. Just a quick second to recognize our former chair, Joe Connolly. Good to see you. Next is Monica from Sunnyside Community Services.
Hi, everyone. Monica Guzman. I was doing double duty. The Board of Directors of Sunnyside Community Services was meeting upstairs. We're also just starting our fiscal year. We have some really good news. I thought Julie Wan was going to mention it, but I want to give a shout out to her. A few months ago, we came here and told you that we were losing all our funding for our ESOL programs. This is English classes for immigrants. The city, in their infinite wisdom, decided that this community did not have high enough needs. And we know that that is the opposite. The council member and the rest of the council was able to restore the funding. We just got word this week. So we are going to deliver English classes once again to over 400 New Yorkers beginning in a month or so. So just want to say that's a big win. So thank you. And we have some upcoming events that I want to let people know about, and I'll leave flyers here. We have a concert from some local musicians. They're hosting a jazz concert here in this center on Saturday, September 21st at 2 p.m. It's free. Information is on our website and on social media. And on Saturday, October 26th, it's the 8th annual Sunnyside Post Mile Run Walk. This is a fundraiser that supports programs that are underfunded at Sunnyside Community Services. We usually have a few hundred people show up, kids. It's a great morning. So we hope people will participate because all of the funds support our programs. And this year, by the way, we're celebrating our 50th anniversary, 50 years of service in the community. So we are going to have actually more announcements coming in the next month or so. And there's going to be some really interesting news that we're going to be able to talk about for the future of the organization. So just want to thank you all for your continued support and partnership. Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you, Monica. Any other representatives of electeds here? I think Javier is usually the last. All right. Let's move on to public comment now. We'll take I'll take in person first and then online if anyone's there. And remember, you have 2 minutes. First up is Matt. Yep. Matt, then Henry. Yeah, if you just want to come up here. And then Mandana.
Good evening. I'm Matt Dienstag. I'm co-president and an owner of Lenoble Lumber Company, a family business. Lenoble started almost 60 years ago in Hell's Kitchen. And today we have more than 120 employees, the majority of which are union jobs, all located in Long Island City. We've had a warehouse on Borden Avenue since 1997 and moved into our main distribution facility on Review Avenue in 2005. I'm here to discuss the Department of Transportation's proposed redesign of some heavily industrial streets in Long Island City. We all want safer streets, and a redesign of the intersection of Greenpoint Avenue, Van Dam, and Review by the bridge is welcome and long in coming. But the proposed narrowing of Review Avenue and Borden Avenue to install dedicated and protected bike lanes needs another look. These are completely industrial streets, already congested with heavy truck traffic, tractor trailers backing into and pulling out of loading docks, trucks having to double park to make deliveries and pickups, forklifts having to enter the street to load and unload trucks. These are not safe streets to funnel bicycle traffic. And narrowing these streets will negatively impact all the businesses along this corridor. We have repeatedly asked the Department of Transportation to show us their traffic studies that show the future use of these streets, the safety of these streets for bike lanes, the impact of the proposals on traffic and on area businesses. But the DOT hasn't produced any studies because they don't have any. How can you propose or implement a major redesign of important industrial streets without even studying the implications? We're not saying no to bike lanes, far from it. The businesses in this area are just asking the community board and the Department of Transportation to delay this work until a comprehensive traffic study is conducted and alternatives are explored. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Henry from the LICP.
Hi, CV2. Good to see you all and look forward to working with you again this session. Yeah, and I'm here to speak on the Borden Avenue, Star Avenue, Review Avenue redesign and streetscape improvements. Over the summer, I contacted businesses in that corridor with DOT's plan for the redesign. And as Matt from Lenoble stated, we've heard from folks that the existing plans as they are right now will interrupt business operations and are not confident that it will improve the safety in the area due to the high truck traffic of the industrial businesses. The city has designated this area of Long Island City as an industrial business zone to protect the businesses, but it has to be more than just the zoning. Industrial businesses have been forced out of nearly all other sections of New York City, and this is one of the last neighborhoods where it's economically and operationally viable to be located. These businesses heavily rely on the neighborhood to be easily maneuverable to transport goods in and out. And as it exists, the heavy congestion of roads and vehicles blocking loading docks make it already difficult to operate in. Shortening the width of the road will increase congestion, making it impossible for trucks to load and unload and drastically disrupt timely operations. We are asking that DOT provide a study of the existing and future conditions with this bike lane, especially on freight traffic flow, before moving forward with this plan. We are not, again, like Matt said, fighting the bike lanes, but we're just hoping to find a solution that won't greatly affect business operations and to just find a solution that will lessen.
So my question is, members of your organization also met with the Blissville Civic Association.
Yeah.
We provided feedback. Why is it that you're not speaking about the 1,000 residents that live in Blissville and the feedback that we have provided to you?
Yeah, and we know that DOT came to the community board, and I think that
your organization sought out Blissville Civic and asked us for feedback. Why aren't you reporting on that?
Because we just thought that DOT account. I think that we were just trying to speak from the business perspective, and I know that like at the community board, maybe they don't show up. Yeah, well, I just think that they don't. The businesses don't have the time to show up to these kind of meetings, and I just wanted to state their voice. And I know that the Blissville, right? You well represent the Blissville residents.
Feedback.
Laura?
Yeah. Did you ask any of these business owners how their employees get to work?
Yeah, we did. And a lot of them didn't mention bikers and bike lanes. I know
People
that,
died biking to work in this area.
yeah.
That's the reason that the community and the community board asked DOT to install these bike lanes. Your point is extremely disingenuous.
Yeah, no, we're not. Again, I just want to make it clear that we're not against bike lanes in this area, and it's not, we don't want to fight them. We just want to find a place for them that won't greatly affect the business operations. And it's not, this is just definitely a difficult section and a high traffic section, and it's awful.
Protection. Any
Yeah,
place
and-
that people have to bike near dense truck traffic requires protected bike lanes with physical barriers. So otherwise people die. This is not a joke.
Yeah, and we, we want to fully work with DOT. I think more is we want more information on like where those accidents have happened specifically and how,
Crashes.
yeah, the crashes and awful incidents. And again, we're here to request a study and more information.
We've
No,
seen
I'm
it.
kidding.
We-
Warren.
I'm sorry, I'm gonna beat this drum over and over again. To Tom's point, our population has increased. I'm sure you're aware of that. It is extremely dangerous, crossing many points throughout Blissville. I know you're very aware of that. I'm just not certain that the businesses understand. Maybe a few of them do, that we have communication with over several years. And to Laura's point, there are more people who come to work in Blissville using mass transit, walking, and bikes, particularly from the film and studios that are in the area. So I'm for it. I think there can be a compromise maybe, but you cannot take the pedestrians and the people who are passing through the community out of this equation. And we have increased in the usage of our neighborhood into Brooklyn and other parts of Queens from COVID to now. So
yeah,
I understand your advocacy, but we advocating for the whole of Blissville and Long Island City. Thank you.
Sorry, thank you for your comments. And I just, like you said, and with Tom's meeting, I think, through this process, we want to keep the open lines of communication together and collaborate. And I'm sorry, I didn't mention the comments in our meeting, but I want to continue and keep in touch with both of you to stay informed on what any information DOT may give us to also provide to you, and just to stay informed and fine.
Maury, Caroline, and Andy, and Riley, we'll cut it there. In the interest of time, please.
Yeah, I want to state that, as chair of the Small Business Committee, I think it's imperative that small businesses and, which are the lifeblood of the economy, are able to move goods, get around, get their products around, and it's imperative. But at the same time, we have to understand that no industry, no community is an island upon itself. Even though we are a bunch of islands and peninsulas around here, we are connected, right? And there are lots of different folks that need to use the roads, the tunnels, the bridges, and the different facilities, infrastructure and services of the city. And we have to share that. So I get that businesses want to have an area where they can easily move goods and services. Maybe we need to start using the waterways more so that they're not, clogging up the roadways. And I think that, there has been even some talk about that already with some of the environmental organizations and other, but I think it's imperative that we understand and we realize that even if you're in an industrial area, there is going to be multiple uses, and it's not just for businesses and vehicles to use an industrial area. Even though it's zoned industrial, there are still, people on bikes, people that are pedestrians, people that go jogging. Everybody should be able to share and use the city and the city's infrastructure. Not unlike in Long Island City with the parks, where people came to the community board and were frustrated and said, you know, we pay taxes and we live here, and these people from other neighborhoods are coming. Well, no. It's a city and a state park. It's for everyone. And the roads and the bridges and the tunnels, even if they're in an industrial area, are for everyone. And we have to figure out a way for everyone to be able to use them.
You're closer.
Yeah, thank you. I am the chair of the Transportation Committee, Riley Owens. And I just want to say, thank you very much for being here. We do appreciate that you're here, and we'd like to hear from all parties, every part of the community. The businesses are important to us. The Transportation Committee hears all sides, and we have a working relationship with the DOT. These things don't just happen. They happen through years and years of study and advocacy. And the DOT takes measured moves when they do these plans that are full of compromises. And I think what you're witnessing now is a community board that has been through this a lot, where bike lanes go in and then the community has representatives who fight the bike lanes. And we've been through it a lot. And what we've learned through the process is that they're not just bike lanes. They're, as Maury said, there are ways to change the roadway so that they serve everybody equally and protect everybody and delight everybody. The Blissville Greenway, as it's called, which this is part of, a lot of compromises were taken. There are not complete protected bike lanes through it. There are just regular bike lanes where it's just a painted strip where people are still in danger. It was brought to us, the plans were brought to us in spring, and nothing has happened yet. No implementation has happened yet, because the DOT has said that they're speaking with stakeholders in the community to make sure that the plan does work. So it's not a very simple thing. It's not paint on the street, and it's not something that goes in very easily. And it's something where everybody has to look at it and go, yeah, I see the compromise, I see the design, I see the safety. And you know, if it really does affect the business, and this isn't just about what we see all over our district, where businesses are using our sidewalks and our roadways for their business. Because I couldn't walk here on this sidewalk because of the body shop up the road, blocking the entire sidewalk. I don't know what your business is like. I'm sure it's great. But we are seeing a lot of businesses using our public space. So again, the DOT does take a measured approach, and I appreciate you being here. You probably weren't expecting all this. But
no, I partially was, but no, like, yeah, I can, they're bad actors. My job is walking the neighborhoods. I dodge the cars. I've seen it, and yeah, what all of you've been saying is what we're kind of feeling is we've got to figure out just a mixed use solution to the neighborhood with, a lot of very unique characteristics. And I think, yeah, my statement and what I guess some of the businesses are kind of looking for is more, I guess, clarity and more information on the process.
Caroline, and then we have to end questions.
I just want to give a quick anecdotal of my experience biking that area for work. I live in South Sunnyside, and for the last 5 years, off and on, because I work in the film and TV industry, I've worked just on the other side of the Greenpoint Bridge on Kingsland Avenue. And biking through Blissville is treacherous. I totally respect the businesses that our industry relies on, it's a cohesive ecosystem with a lot of those industrial businesses. But for a 12-minute bike ride that I have, to see my life flash before my eyes, the amount of times that I have, we so desperately need safer bike infrastructure in Blissville. I cannot, my heart is beating thinking about those times. So that's all I want to say.
Thank you, Henry, for also, being here to listen to the comments. So appreciate that. Okay, Mandana.
Hi, so my name is Mandana Limbert. I've been a resident of Court Square with my family since 2011. When we moved to Court Square, my son was entering kindergarten. Now he's in his first year of college. So a lot has changed besides me being grayer. And I should say I really appreciate some of those changes. There are more services and there's more life. At the same time, I've also seen the toll that the scale of overdevelopment along Jackson Avenue and Queens Plaza in particular has taken. Somehow the city imagined that a jungle of glass towers from 25 stories to 80 plus, with almost no open space and almost no control over shadows, would be, I don't know, a great idea for urban planning in the 21st century. It has instead been a model of alienation, of sterility, and environmental degradation. And now the city seems to want to do it all over again with your approval. So with those glass towers, I've also seen the sidewalks hotter, the trees struggle to find light and then die, and regular flooded basements from storms, not to mention neighbors forced to move. The city has actually understood in general the necessity of trying to reverse the environmental degradation that overdevelopment also causes. For example, local law 1065, passed just last year, mandates that the city plan to increase its tree canopy to 30%. Yet the tree canopy in Court Square is at about 0 to 10. And in an article published in Gothamist earlier this year, documenting each new tree planted and planned to be planted this year, there were none in Court Square, none. And to further the degradation, and instead of working toward environmental repair, the draft scope of work projects 50 to 65 new high, higher, and highest towers. High, higher, and highest. They're purposely vague in my mind. I don't know exactly what that means, but high, higher, and highest are the categories. What would it take to have more areas of Queens benefit from more canopies of trees, as mandated by the city itself, while also providing desperately needed housing? It seems pretty obvious. We can grow the canopy not with high, higher, and highest, but with low and medium height buildings. Keep the height restrictions at 8 stories along 44th Drive, and use that along with Sunnyside and Astoria as a model, not Queens Plaza. Let's learn from our mistakes, not repeat them. Thank you.
Thank you. I live in the neighborhood, so I understand. Where do you go to the park?
I go to Murray.
And do you find that you would need more green space?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm
Yes,
asking you to
I mean,
validate my
yes,
feelings. So.
Yes, I mean, we have Murray.
Yep.
I mean, we could walk 15 minutes, which is, and to Gantry, and it's beautiful. And I really appreciate that. And I'm so grateful that it's there. But right around between Court Square and Queens Plaza, it's just tunnels of glass. And whatever this draft scope of work is proposing 50 to 65 new towers between 23rd Street and the river. It's not low to medium height. We're great with density. We want density. We want people, but not at this 50 to 65 new high, higher, and highest, whatever that means. And I find it devastating.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm sorry, for the previous thing, I just had a delayed reaction. Thanks to Caroline reminding me about the bike ride to Blissville, because I also do that commute sometimes with a 5-year-old on the back of my cargo electric e-bike. So yeah, it sucks. Let's approve it. Bill Kregler, are you here? Are you online? Yeah, that should have been in one LIC comment, but it was on the other sheet. Right. Leo, are you talking about one LIC? Okay, so let's wait until that section of the meeting started. Thank you. Victoria Mayo, are you talking about one LIC or? Great, okay. Sorry for the long walk.
Hi, everyone. I appreciate your time. My name is Victoria. I am the office manager for Pursuit. We are an education nonprofit. We offer job training for low-income New Yorkers looking to become software developers. So we are based out of Long Island City on Austell Place. It is a very industrial area, as many of you know, and we have, for the past year, been neighbors with new migrant shelter, which houses about 1,000 people just across the street from us. Recently, we've had a handful of very concerning issues come up in the neighborhood. So we had one woman in our program who was physically assaulted just around the corner on Skillman Ave. And another gentleman from our office who was followed by a group of men yelling homophobic slurs and making threats on his life. Since opening up this conversation, we have found that a handful of women from our office have had men expose themselves to them on the street. And just a lot of concerning behaviors just like this. So these are the conversations that we're having right now. I do want to thank Julie Wan's office. She has been so responsive and coming to listen to our stories and try to help us work on a solution. But I just wanted to bring this to the table, see if I could get a little bit more involved in the community, see how we might be able to get a solution together. It's a very, very dark area of Skillman Ave when you're walking either to the 7 at Hunters Point or if you're walking over to Court Square. I have personally never seen police presence there. There's not very much street lights. It's very dirty area, a lot of trash on the street, and overall it's making for a really unsafe experience for our people, and it's actually affecting people coming to work. So we offer a great service for the community. We're looking to help people grow, and I understand these challenges are complicated, but I just wanted to kind of engage the community board and kind of share what we're going through. Yeah.
Thousand-person migrant shelter unfortunately does not require a community advisory board. I'd like you to be invited to our community advisory board with neighboring shelters, because at least it will give you a voice directly with DHS. So Warren and I will make sure we give you the date, the time, and the location, so that way you could voice your concerns directly to DHS as well.
I'd very much appreciate that. Thank you. You know what? I will mention the Tech Innovation Center maybe at the next one. I think I'm probably not the best one to speak. I won't be able to give the full oomph of it. Yeah. Thank you. All right. Thank you for your time.
Okay, anyone else for general public comment? Because next the next section of comment will be after the DCP presentation. Going once, going twice. Okay, we'll move along to our presentation tonight on the One LSC scope of work from our friends at Department of City Planning.
All right. Hello, everybody. Thank you for having me tonight. And thank you to Councilmember Wan for making the great comments to sort of frame the discussion. So my name is Katie Crawford. I'm from the Department of City Planning. Tonight, I'm going to be speaking on the draft scope of work that's related to the One LIC neighborhood plan. Next slide, please. So since we are just getting back into the swing of things, I'm going to start with a little overview of the plan and the process so far. Then I'm going to talk about the draft scope of work itself, the timeline moving forward, as well as next steps. We'll have time for public comment and then Q&A from the board. Next slide, please. Thank you. So this map shows our project area outlined in the red dashed line with the surrounding neighborhood context. The project area is generally bounded by Queens Plaza South to the north, Court Square to the west, 44th Drive to the south, and the East River to the west. Given the transit-rich and mixed-use character of the neighborhood, significant increase in both population and housing units, and opportunities for job growth and workforce development, LIC was ready for a nice holistic look. Next slide. So starting with the existing zoning map, most of the area is zoned M1-4, and a large swath is covered by the special Long Island City mixed-use district. This special district was created to bring a mix of uses to an area that was predominantly manufacturing. The district also has special regulations on height and bulk, as well as provisions for public improvements like sidewalk widening and increased transit station capacity. This district has permitted a lot of new housing in the area, but it was adopted prior to the creation of MIH. So we did not have the opportunity to secure permanently affordable units in the neighborhood. Next slide. In addition to a lack of affordable housing, there's also a serious need for open space. While there is open space, it's mostly concentrated along the waterfront, and the inland communities don't really have a lot of access. What open space is provided, as we just heard, is a far walk, and it's not really accessible to residents. Next slide. Resiliency is also of concern in the neighborhood. The flood hazard map shown here demonstrates that coastal areas are at heightened and frequent risk of extreme weather events. Plans for the future of this area will require a coordinated approach to address resiliency. Next slide. Transportation is both an asset and a concern here. LIC is well served by transit with multiple subway lines, multiple bus stops, 2 ferry stops, 2 LIRR stations. The 7 line runs through the neighborhood and is one of the highest used lines in the city. Often the stops just before getting into Manhattan, the trains are overbooked and overloaded. Especially walkability to these stations is difficult for many, and the closer to the waterfront you get, the more inaccessible the subway stations become. Next slide. So the project kicked off in November of 2023, and we've held multiple community engagement events since then. Those have taken the shape of focus area meetings and town halls. We also went out to community events like LIC Springs and Queensbridge Family Day. The comments received at all of these events informed 7 shared goals of the plan. And as we continued to collect comments and feedback throughout our early public engagement process, we also created a list of draft strategies that fit within those 7 goals. Next slide. So the strategies are high-level calls for the city to explore new policies, capital projects, and programs and services. The strategies are related to protecting existing and generating new housing, especially affordable housing, investing in existing parks and delivering new open spaces, enhancing connectivity for all modes of transit, planning for a more resilient and sustainable Long Island City, supporting existing businesses and the creative community, investing in neighborhood services, education, and community programs, and lastly, increasing the knowledge and capacity of planning partners. Next slide. Also, through the substantial public engagement that we held, we developed zoning framework goals. These goals ended up feeding into the development of our draft zoning proposal. So the goals that we came up with were to increase density and allowing housing in key areas, encouraging a mixed use environment that's reflective of the surrounding area, create open space opportunities, strengthen the economic vitality of the light industrial districts, encourage active, diverse, and dynamic corridors, and be responsive to their surrounding context. Next slide. So this is the draft zoning proposal that I just spoke about. This was shared at the last town hall alongside the draft strategies in this past June. The purple areas in the middle there we anticipate to see more non-residential growth in that area. And the red, orange, and yellow districts are where we anticipate to see both a mix of residential and non-residential growth. Next slide. So kind of contextualizing everything that I just said into the timeline. So from November to February, the community feedback that we got informed the shared goals, like I said. Then from February to May, the community feedback that we continued to collect helped to inform those draft strategies. Like I said, both the draft zoning proposal and the draft strategies were released at the June town hall. Then the next step was to release the draft scope of work. This was released on July 12th, and we held a public scoping hearing on August 12th. So looking to the future, starting with the green arrow, we're going to continue to define the potential policy changes, programs and services, and capital projects. Along the same track there with the pink arrow, we will start the environmental analysis through the seeker process. And then following the blue track along the bottom, we will continue to hold public engagement events over the fall and the winter. We don't have exact dates for these ready to share yet, but stay tuned. So then moving to the draft neighborhood plan arrow there with the red dash line, we're hoping to have a full neighborhood plan package prepared by the spring, and that will include a more final summary of our draft strategies, as well as having the full environmental impacts analyzed associated with the draft zoning proposal. From there, the project enters ULURP, which is the process you guys are all very familiar with. We will continue to develop and finalize those draft strategies, as well as make any modifications to the zoning proposal during that time. And then the final neighborhood plan package is sort of the finish line, and we are anticipating that that will happen fall of 2025. Next slide. All right, so now getting to the draft scope of work. The draft scope of work is the first milestone in the environmental review, and it shows what we plan to analyze in that review. In this analysis, we compare a no action scenario, which does anticipate some continued development of the area, with a with action scenario, or in this case, scenarios. These analysis here of 2035, so the development is assumed for the next 10 years. We have identified 50 projected sites and 15 potential sites to be reviewed under this analysis. Projected sites are sites that we think are most likely to be developed. Potential sites we also think will be likely to be developed, but less likely in comparison to the projected sites. Next slide. Both with action scenarios are very similar to one another. We anticipate that the increment for both with action scenarios will produce around 14,000 housing units, 4,000 of which would be permanently affordable through MIH. Around 300 million square feet of commercial uses like local retail, office, and life science, around 340,000 square feet of community facility space, and an estimated loss of nearly 570,000 square feet of industrial space. This would be a result of changing M districts along the waterfront from solely manufacturing to mixed use scenarios. Next slide. So this slide really outlines the 21 areas of analysis that are included in the draft scope of work. So this includes everything from socioeconomic conditions, which compare direct and indirect impacts to both residents and businesses, as well as open space, water and sewer infrastructure, neighborhood character, alternatives, and mitigation. Next slide. So over the summer, DCP staff met twice with the Land Use Committee to help discuss the plan, discuss the draft scope of work, and answer questions. Using that information, members of the Land Use Committee did develop a sort of set of draft comments that will be presented to you later on tonight. The consultant team will then accept and review those comments, and they will be incorporated into the final scope of work where applicable. And the next step is, like I mentioned before, actually getting into the process of environmental review through seeker. At the same time, the city will continue to define the potential policy changes, capital projects, and programs and services that will be part of the draft neighborhood plan package. Next slide. All right, that's all I have for you tonight. After public comment, Hae Kyung and I will be here to answer questions that you might have.
Thank you, Katie. Public comment on this topic, starting with Leo. I also may have missed Hannah Engler and Irina Kostash. Are either of you? Nope. Okay. Oh.
Hi, everyone. Yes, I'm Leo Gutman. I live just outside the study area in Court Square. And I wanted to voice my support and excitement about a plan that can, create new homes for many New Yorkers who really need them. I'm really grateful for, the rezone that happened, earlier in the millennium and that, created new homes that I live in now. And I was really excited at the announcement at the start of this process that I could have input on a plan that would essentially, repeat that and be able to pass it forward to new people. There are like local reasons why, this is a great area to build up that have been covered already, related to transit and, job growth and current growth in the area. There are also regional reasons that, we all need to be contributing to, the housing crisis and the affordability crisis. The really low rental vacancy rates are really troubling. And I think for all those reasons, I'm excited to see a plan that will, support as much residential growth as possible. I'm excited for other aspects of the plan, like a better connected greenway and, open space. But the key thing for me is I'm just really excited to see more residential growth. And I hope that input from the board also supports that.
Anyone else? I don't see any. Corey, yeah. Now you can talk.
Good evening. My name is Corey Hannigan. I'm a resident of Sunnyside and I'm the public member on the CBT Transportation Committee. I want to echo the previous speaker's support for this project. I am lucky that I was able to buy a place when I did, but even 2 months ago, I was really worried that I was going to get priced out of this neighborhood. And I understand that vacancy rates are lower than they've ever been in my lifetime in New York City. And the solution to that really is supply. Now, I understand that really tall buildings are jarring and there's aesthetic concerns, and that's valid. But I think we need to recognize that because of MIH, larger buildings do translate into more affordable housing, which I think we should support in general and have our concessions there set as well. Now, in terms of my concession for this project, one concern I do have is, although a goal was set out to address safety for vulnerable road users, there is no traffic modeling for bicycle activity. So I'd like that to be included in the scope of work, as well as support and integration with any existing greenway plans and the New York City Green Wave Network. Looking at crashes, looking at safety is obviously really important, but we need to be looking forward and thinking progressively about how we can make this work for everyone in terms of open space, affordable housing, and mobility. Thank you very much.
You, Corey. Anyone else? I don't see anyone online. So I think we will. Do you want to comment? You too, or I think you're going later. Okay.
Hi, my name is Jenny Dubnow. I'm a member of the Western Queens Community Land Trust. Just speaking for myself right now, when we're talking about these massive upzonings, I just want us, we're making major city policy. I know that Eric Adams has the imperative is to build, in particular on public sites. We desperately need more affordable housing. I would be thrilled to have some actual deep affordable housing everywhere in the city. But that's not what we're getting. So the question is, what does the data show about the impact of mostly unaffordable housing on communities? The data shows that you build, the rents at the very high end go down very slightly. I have read these papers and it's not fun to read them. And I'm not a city planner. At the low end, if anything, they go up. They do not go down. This is not simple supply and demand. We have different housing markets. We have people who can only pay $700 or $300 a month. And then we have other people who can pay $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 a month. If their rent goes down slightly, That's great for them, but it doesn't address our actual problem. We have over 200 vacant units right now in Ravenswood and Queensbridge. If we're talking about a community plan, the first thing we should do is bring those back online. That's for people who make less than 30% of AMI. We have Parcel E on Hunters Point South, that's public land. Unfortunately, the city is not doing a good job. The AMI levels that have been released for that public land, it's unaffordable. There's some affordable units, but it's not that much better than MIH. We need new tools to create deep affordability. If the city can come up with those tools, I am all for it. Let's build some 100% deeply affordable housing. I am never going to be in favor of adding yet more luxury housing to a community that is already overburdened. It's going to increase gentrification, displacement. You'll get more white, wealthy people moving in. But what about the people who've been displaced? We have to start thinking about that.
Thank you, Jenny. I think we'll move on to Q&A from the board. And let's keep it to 15 minutes. Anybody else before, because Tom, you've gone a few times. Anyone else first? All right, Michael. Corey. Carlos, yeah.
Hi there. I'm Michael Zurab on the board. I have thanks for the. I wanted to ask a couple of questions. I know in our proposed letter and also in some of your remarks, you talked about flooding and just kind of infrastructure more generally. And I'm curious how DCP is thinking about that, how the scoping and the stuff we're voting on fits into that, both like the potential, how are you all considering the flood risk in the context of the rezoning? How might the environmental impact study sort of play into all this? Just like broadly speaking, how are we thinking about these kinds of environmental mitigations in this process?
So I will definitely tap on Hik Young to provide more information, but DCP ourselves, we do not necessarily do that part of the analysis. We do rely on DEP for collecting and sharing the data and for really running that. I'm sorry, is this better?
Yes, so thank you, Katie. Hi, everyone. Hey, Kyung Yang. I want to say that, first of all, thank you so much for the comment letter that you guys have drafted. I think I want to respond by saying that to sort of your sentence of the LIC plan offers no plan to prevent or mitigate the above issues. That's because right now at this moment, this is a draft scope of work. And so no full analysis has been done yet, but that is in the works. So all of your comments about infrastructure needs and the sewer capacity, flooding will be analyzed as we close this chapter of the draft scope of work. So when we get back to you next, we'll have more detailed analysis to share with you little by little. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So like, just so we understand the process, I guess the context is we're voting on something to help y'all figure out what to study. And this is just like a way to communicating something we want you to study, basically.
That's correct. But also there's no, I think the voting here is the voting for the comment letter that you guys have drafted together. There's no resolution. There's no yes with conditions, no with, all the things. So this is just a response to your internal comment letter.
Christine, do you want to clarify something? Yeah, wait for Carlos, please.
I do want to clarify for everybody that yes, nothing is set in stone, but the purpose of the scope of work for the EIS is to analyze a very specific set of proposed actions, which are in fact quite detailed. And those are the actions and that are going to be analyzed. Mm-hmm. So in fact, a quite detailed proposal was developed by the city in order to get to the draft scope of work. So this is not in an initial stage of planning, just based on the complexity of the draft actions that are already in the scope of work, just for everyone's understanding. So it is a very important point in the process for us to comment, because once it proceeds, the EIS is analyzing something which it's very hard to go backwards on. But I have another question that I'd like clarified, if I can. I'm reading the shared goal 2 in these draft strategies about open space. And I see no mention, I mean, in regard to mitigating the current lack of open space and the very low open space ratio that currently exists, and what's going to get even worse with more housing construction, is the situation, particularly inland. I only see as a strategy, invest in existing neighborhood public parks to meet current and future demand. There's no way that those existing parks can meet current and future demand. They don't even meet current demand. So my question is, would the neighborhood plan, or is it possible, or is the city even willing to concede that they might have to acquire property for parkland, for public parkland inland, to meet the needs of the neighborhood that they're proposing to build? Because I just don't see that anywhere.
So it's very clear to us that there is a need for open space. We are working with the existing public sites that we have to try to address this open space issue. We haven't further, as part of the draft scope of work, we will be continuing to look at this open space and the mitigation for it. So we hear you. It's in the letter. We'll continue to dive into it and resolve it. Again, I can't give you a full answer.
It as a strategy, if in fact it's the only reasonable mitigation.
And Christine, thank you for that comment. The draft strategies, it is draft strategies. They can be added to it. We can. So because it's in draft stage, we are still defining it. So we're welcome. I think that the draft strategies can be refined more and to a better final state as we continue this process.
Ramit, then Tom.
Hey, Kyung, I know we've talked about some of this before, and I know that this is just a standard process that you're following, but I'd just like to restate my main concern here. So the timeline that we're going to follow next year, I think it's fundamentally backward in that the city commitments come after certification and the ULURP review. Certification is in the spring of next year, and the city commitments we're estimating are going to come in the fall of next year. And I can tell you right now, probably with pretty strong conviction, that whether or not this board ultimately supports this rezoning is going to depend in a very large part on what commitments we can get from the city to make this rezoning a little more manageable. Because, just for everyone's benefit, why would we approve this neighborhood-wide rezoning if we don't know what infrastructure investments we're going to get, if we don't know if we're going to get new parks, if we're going to get new sewers, if we're going to get additional transportation capacity? So when we're voting on that during ULURP, but we don't know what we're going to get, I assume we're going to vote no. So just for your benefit in going through this process, anything you can do to get the city to give us our commitments way in advance of ULURP, I think that would be helpful. Because otherwise, what are we doing here?
Thank you for me. We've heard this, and we've heard multiple times through the public engagement process, the need for addressing existing concerns and existing issues for the existing residents. So we hear that as we're engaging and continuing to have Councilmember Juan on board, and throughout this entire process, we hope to achieve that little by little as best as we can.
Thank you. My question is, will there be an additional draft scope of work for the context areas? Because I do not see any real information in this scope of work as it relates to the context area. Specifically, you've already heard earlier in the meeting, there are areas in Long Island City that are experiencing sewer overflows on a regular basis. We're very concerned sharing the same main sewer line with all this additional housing that has toilets, et cetera, where is that in the scope? Or is there a second scope coming?
There is no second scope coming, but I will take that into our notes and bring it back to
So
you.
our concern is, we were sold something in the beginning. core area and then the context areas. I see nothing for the context areas in the scope of work. There is no speaking about the second waterfront, which is in the context areas, the southern border of Long Island City, Newtown Creek. There's nothing in here about Newtown Creek long-term plan about closing the CSOs, the combined sewer overflows. How is closing the CSOs and adding all this additional sewage going to impact us? Do we have to move? Do we have to fill our basements with cement? There's nothing here about any of that. It's concerning.
I need to get back to you on this because there is a radius within the study.
We're in the radius.
You're in the
I'm very
radius.
familiar.
So
I've
I think it's-
attended every one of your meetings.
Yes.
I've been vocal at every one of your meetings for the last year. None of our feedback is in there.
Okay. I'll get back to you on the sewer stuff.
Who said it?
Thank you. I have a concern regarding the environmental impact. So I don't have the full planning materials, but I'm concerning about my neighborhood environment. And I believe our the land use committee definitely took care of that. Just make sure that the environmental stability for our neighborhood, no more industrial space allocation for this neighborhood, because it's only a mile away from the Manhattan and lot of electric like vehicle, like 1,000 of vehicle cross this neighborhood. You see the 495 expressway, also the Queens Bluebird. So my request to before this plan, make sure no more industrial space location. You can do some commercial, but more for the residential, because it's destroy our beauty of Long Island City. If you walk through this site, is totally look like it's not a New York City. It look like the industrial city. So I hope so. You guys can take care of the environment impact for this plan. Thank you.
Camille.
Thank you. I think a sort of similar comment in that when you look at LIC, particularly the Court Square area, it looks like a place that was developed in a very hodgepodge kind of way. I think it's been a challenging place to live with the amount of construction since COVID. All of it came back at the same time with the dust, with the noise, with the blocked sidewalks, with the, walk-arounds, with the trucks. It's been a hard place to live. Does that factor in at all, as you think about developing the neighborhood, the existing residents and what it will be like as the neighborhood adds density? So one question. And second question is the thought of, it just looks like a hodgepodge mess. Is there some way that, that over there could look like a neighborhood, or is it just going to be a random assortment of buildings? And maybe the last third, the street naming is very confusing, and I hope that's addressed.
Thank you for those comments. I think part of the reasons why we are doing this neighborhood plan is to create a more holistic picture, a neighborhood plan. I know that there was a slide regarding why we're doing it, what the needs are, or what the needs have been collected so far. We see tremendous growth in this neighborhood, and we want to make sure that it becomes a neighborhood plan similar to the goals of the community board. So we're excited to do that. We're on the path to do it with you. So thank you for your comments. Regarding the comments on the signage and the names of the streets, that's an interesting request. And I think we should make sure we write that down as part of perhaps one of those, again, sorry, this neighborhood plan is not just a rezoning. There are parts of it that have programs and artistic, sections of the plan that has to do with arts and culture. So I think it would be really interesting to put that into this program, into this plan. So thank you for that comment.
Hi. There's no neighborhood plan that's really shown when you just show a zoning plan. This goes back to Christine's comment about showing public space within the plan. No one's able to visualize what you're trying to create with this rezoning without showing three-dimensional expressions, whether it's an axonometric or some kind of three-dimensional drawings which show us what the vision is for this plan. And there's no having all this development without further public space as part of it.
Noted, and we agree.
Nelly, and then is there anyone online for the last one? No? Okay. Nelly and Laura, and then we'll end it.
Hi, thank you for being here and all your work. One thing that really stands out to me from the 7 shared goals is that none of them speak to the health of the people who live in Long Island City. I do want to point out that 1 or 2 of the goals do call out specific public health needs, maternal health, early childhood health and development, but none of the shared goals, address public health more broadly. So thinking about, our health needs now, what does the profile look like? How will the built environment affect the health of this population going forward? Can you speak to the ways in which you are bringing in public health experts, how you're planning to assess that and study the public health of the neighborhood?
That will definitely be part of, thank you for that comment, part of our engagement as we move forward with this study. So there is, I'm not exactly sure which chapter in the environmental EIS that will be specific to public health, but I think there may be a section to it, and I can verify, we can come back to it. But we are, as part of this plan, engaging with city agencies as well. So H&H have been involved, and we're striving to sort of understand what's going on in this community, and then having the dialogue, what programs, what can we do better to serve the needs of CB2 and sort of the context area as well. So it is ongoing. The answer is it's ongoing. We hear you more as we continue to come back to you. Is that
okay? Yeah, H&H is great, and we should absolutely engage them, speaking to, hospitals, clinics, treatment, and healthcare. I'd want to make sure that the health department is also engaged, thinking about prevention and public health.
So I think when it comes to addressing the housing affordability issue, this is a board of yes, and we want to stay that way. We just really want to ensure that the infrastructure comes along with it. I think we all do see the merit in this holistic process versus an spot rezoning, landlord-driven process. Is there anything you can do to ensure that, as the DSOW moves forward, the city is going to help provide some transparency about the costs of capital projects so that we can maximize the trade-offs and really get the best possible result out of this?
I will, we'll get back to you on the exact costs that you're asking for. I think that's the specific question.
I understand the study has to happen to understand the size of those projects to begin with.
Right.
But there are some things that really could happen simultaneously. Like, we know we need sewer upgrades. We know we need open space. What upgrades to a transit station for projected number of people. Like, we could know some of this now at the same time instead of, versus just having to go off of the housing data.
So I think part of this study is to begin to fully analyze that. So we'll be able to give this data to our sister agencies who will provide all that information. And so this is, to be honest, and I said this earlier, it would be the beginning of the fuller analysis to come that will answer your questions.
Okay, thank you.
Danielle, final answer. No more questions after that.
Thank you. And I know that I asked this question a lot. 4,000 units of affordable housing really is not enough. It's really expensive to live in Long Island City. Most of my neighbors pretty much know they're going to be priced out. What can we do to get that number up from 4,000, make it more? And what can we do to ensure that the people that are living or get those apartments are the families in our shelters that are in our council district? Thank you.
So Danielle, sorry.
If I may just
Yeah,
add on to that, is there capacity set aside for formerly homeless and so on?
To be honest, I'm not sure. So we're writing the questions down and we'll get back to you because that's very specific. Just to clarify, Danielle, you mean you want more affordable? We are right now, the tools that we have at city planning is MIH. We are working with our sister agency HPD to figure out a toolkit and understand what else is there to deeper affordability like Jen asked for. What are some other things that we could provide? But that analysis is happening now.
Great, I think we'll cut it off there. And just a reminder, we are voting later on our response, our feedback to the draft scope of planning, to the draft scope of work. And can we also make sure that when we submit our comments, I feel like we could also submit a recording to tonight's meeting, because I feel like that should be incorporated in some way, right? This discussion that we're having here. And so on, right?
Yes, you can
Great.
via electronic form.
Yeah, well, you'll get a link to a video. Awesome. Okay. Let's try to get to attendance by 9 o'clock. LSC Coalition, please come up. Do you need to plug in, or are you on the Zoom? Do you have like presentation? Sure. Oh, do you have anything to show? Or... Oh, okay, wait, yeah. No worries, go ahead.
Overwhelmed with things to do and couldn't get it together. No, it's disappointing more to me, but. Keep it there. Hi. Okay, yeah. Hi, everyone. Maybe I will take it out. How do I? So I'm Lisa Gorin of Long Island City Coalition and Hunters Point Community Coalition, and I'm here with Memo Salazar, who's with Western Queens Community Land Trust. And we're here to speak tonight about the vision plan for resiliency for Hunters Point North that we are promoting and put together, and which includes the reimagining of the Department of Education building at 44th Drive as the Queensboro People's Space. So the vision plan for resiliency, which was underwritten with funding from Senator Gianaris and completed last May, is the outcome of extensive community input. It offers a detailed roadmap for tackling LIC's most critical problems, our current problems from current growth. And it's aligned with goals that have been advocated for many years by the community and by CB2, let me say. So the plan would bring open space, a good deal more open space to this neighborhood, and we're currently third lowest in per capita open space in the city. It would create a deep and continuous waterfront park from Animal Basin to Queensbridge Park by keeping the public waterfront properties at in and around Animal Basin in the public's hands and pooling them with required public access areas from private lots. It would create multiple lines of resiliency in this flood-prone neighborhood, starting at the shoreline and moving inland, and flood protection along the waterfront and to the community behind it, from storm surge, increasing precipitation, and sea level rise, by incorporating multiple lines of strategies, buried seawalls, a living shoreline, setbacks, et cetera, and better drainage. It would transform, as Memo will talk about, the Queens DOE building into a hub of community services, education spaces, performing arts, commercial and light manufacturing. It would expand or diversify the economy by supporting the IBZ and creating spaces at the DOE building. It would improve crosstown and north-south connections, linking the disparate communities of Hunters Point North and Queensbridge houses with the more affluent Hunters Point South. And that's a key goal is connecting our neighborhoods in a way that we think is not happening with other plans. And it would expand access to the waterfront by opening streets and corridors that currently dead end. And last, it would support the IBZ also with a blue highway to help transport goods connected to other IBZs along the waterfront in other neighborhoods. And we're talking about bringing residential live workspaces and other housing, but behind the floodplain, not in flood-prone areas that are just sort of a disaster waiting to happen. So the One LIC plan, by contrast, in our view, is not a plan. It is largely a proposal to upzone and not, as was said, holistically. We're pleased that the DCP has adopted the community's language of resiliency, equity, and affordability. But unfortunately, the plan is a proposal, as I said, to upzone, and it adds merely to upzone, really, and it adds to the neighborhood's current problems rather than alleviating them. It's a process that is really upside down, as other people have commented on. The proposed waterfront esplanade is not a park. It does little for resiliency. And the proposed towers on the public land at Animal Basin below the community of its last remaining public riverfront properties. Property that should be there for everybody in the neighborhood, not for the few lucky lottery winners who get, you know, maybe not really affordable apartments. And it takes that property that's needed for resiliency, for open space, and gives it to developers for high rises. The properties in that neighborhood already flood on sunny days. They have sunny, quote unquote, sunny day flooding, and we're under over 6 feet of water during Hurricane Sandy. We should learn a lesson from that. It does nothing, the neighborhood plan, really to diversify the economy and to bring services and new manufacturing opportunities. Now I'd like to give it to Memo to talk more about the DOE transition to the Queensboro People Space.
Thanks. Most of you probably know this plan already. I'll just say it briefly in case you haven't heard of it, but the Western Queens Community Land Trust has this community vision, a comprehensive vision that we worked with an architect and with many community stakeholders to transform the DOE building that's on Vernon Boulevard and 44th Drive into a community hub, artist studios, spaces, a rooftop farm, a food co-op, parking for street vendors, and a whole lot more. You can look at the plan on our site. You can come talk to us. Happy to tell you more. There's flyers in the back that Pam can give you that gives you more information. This community visioning, you know, the One LIC, is that right now the 4 public parcels that are included in the scoping are going to be, or at least are proposed to be rezoned, allowing for mixed use, which would then open the door for those public pieces of land to become apartment buildings, probably market rate apartment buildings. obviously, we're not in favor of that, but specifically with the DOE building, that would open the door to somebody coming in, a developer coming in, tearing down that huge, massive, and completely functioning building, and then putting up a tower instead, which is environmentally unsustainable. It's also going to cost a huge amount of money to not only tear the building down, but relocate the DOE. So our proposal is a much more cost-effective and environmentally sustainable proposal than that. So we're asking you to when you're giving feedback, to go against rezoning those 4 pieces of land. Also, as Lisa said, the floodplain, they're right in the floodplain, so they're not good places to be building. Instead, we should make them into public park, which I think is exactly what we want. So the other thing I wanted to point out is, because Danielle made a comment and some other folks have made a comment as well, how do we get more than just the MIH, which is the very, very weak tool that we have for affordable housing? Well, just as an example, Vancouver has a similar problems as New York City. Their population doubled since 1960. They tripped exactly what we're always hearing we should do, which is build more. That didn't stop the prices from going down. Going up. In fact, they skyrocketed. They're now one of the most expensive cities in America, in North America. And so one thing they have done, which we should take a page of, is they have very creatively done some value capture. So what happens is, when you rezone that land, the land becomes much more valuable and the developers make a shit ton of money, pardon my French. So what Vancouver is doing is they've made a rule so that 80% of anything that's rezoned and 80% of the extra profit that has been generated by that change in zone value goes back into the city to then fund affordable housing. So if we're going to do that here in Long Island City, if we're going to rezone, whatever the rezoning looks like, we need to build in mechanisms like that to value capture and bring all of that profit back into the community rather than in the pockets of the developers who will mostly benefit from this kind of rezoning. So I urge you to think about things like that in your comments and push for that kind of creative solution so that the money doesn't go out of our communities. So, that's pretty much, I'll bring it back to Lisa to wrap it up, but thank you very much.
So just a couple more comments, because I think we're out of time. So again, just to underscore what Memo said, the DCP and CB2 should recognize that upzoning is a gift to developers. And we are in our plan recommending kind of a virtuous loop of value-added givebacks. And it doesn't have to be 80%, but there should be some give back of those millions of dollars of added value so that the community can support that additional density. There are costs involved in, services required for more people and open space needed and, school seats and all sorts of things. So it should not just be a pure gift. And in closing, I'd like to just underscore that we're asking CB2 to reject the disposal of our public waterfront properties, reject changes to the waterfront access plan that would reduce access to the waterfront, support using our public waterfront properties for a resiliency park, support transitioning the DOE into the Queensborough people space, support deeply affordable housing and live work spaces, but have them built outside of the floodplain and supported by 21st century infrastructure, open space, transportation, and community services, and support the IBZ and expansion of clean manufacturing that would create a more diversified, equitable economy. And we really do see the ability to transition industrial zones into really vibrant, welcoming areas that are compatible with housing, that in our plan you can see we have images of live work spaces and true mixed use spaces in other cities that are actually quite beautiful and non-polluting industries. We need resiliency and affordability. It's not an either or proposition. It's a both and proposition, and we need to be more creative in the solutions that we're recommending so that we don't destroy LIC in order to improve it. And that's it. One last thing. When Queens West Corporation proposed a plan for Hunters Point South and all of that building at Hunters Point South, there was almost no open space that came along with their proposal. Hunters Point Community Coalition and other groups proposed an alternative plan that had continuous waterfront park that linked back to the community, that made Vernon the hub of businesses rather than Center Boulevard. And the reason that Long Island City, one key reason that it's as desirable as it is because of that park that was a result of community input and an alternative plan that much of it got implemented. It created resiliency. It's a destination. It's an economic driver. It's all these things that are good, not just for the community, but for developers too. So let's just think more, creatively and intelligently about how to develop. It's not just about bringing massive numbers of new units and as though that's a solution. And just if you would, please, I'm sorry I didn't have slides, go to lic-coalition.org and wqclt.org, and you'll see details. And thank you very much for your time.
I don't think we need to take questions. I think those points were pretty well made. Let's move on to board business. So we're going to end public. We'll start with Q&A. Sorry, not Q&A. Attendance. Q&A about who is here. One question, one answer.
Excellent. All right, here we go. Without further ado, Q&A of who's here. Amparo Abelbay, Nelly Afshar, Anatol Ashraf, John Bahia, absent, Anne-Marie Baranowski, Carisha Patan, absent, Nick Berkowitz, excused, Kat Bloomfield, excused, Danielle Brecker, Carlos Castelcroc, yep. Lisa Charles, online. Lisa Charles, can you answer?
Anissa, can you answer your father's phone? Okay.
Yep.
Sorry.
Perfect, thank you. Tanya Chavez, excused. Osman Chowdhury. Okay. Steve Cooper, excused. Yep. Warren Davis. Lisa Deller. Maury Gallinoy. Sonat Kumir. Dr. Raz Tanutzos. Alexandra Gonzalez.
Present online.
Camille Gray. Kenny Greenberg. Mohammed Hossein. Christine Hunter. Leland Kandel. Bidrun Khan.
I'm here.
Online. Okay. Diana Kishler. Excused. James Kim.
Present online.
Online, great, thank you. Prameet Kumar. Chimang Lama, excused. Sheila Lewandowski, excused. Benjamin Lucas. Absent. Patrick Martinez. Absent. Tom Matutsis. Yep. Eric Narberg. Andy Olivares. Okay. Sishan Ott.
Here online.
Perfect, thank you. Riley Owens. Okay. Jolly Patel.
Here online.
Online, great, thank you. Maya Saab.
Online.
Great, thank you.
Present.
Norberto Saldana. Laura Shepard. All right. Ryan Smith, I am here. Caroline Spitzer. Lauren Springer, excused. Kello Thomas.
Good evening. I'm here.
Thank you. Mary Torres, excused. May Tran, excused. Leticia Vasquez. Okay, great. And Michael Zurab. Great. We have a quorum.
Awesome. Thank you, Ryan. Now let's move to approval of June minutes. Do you want to make a motion? Motion to approve? Okay, so Mohammed Hussein made the motion to approve June minutes. Dr. Roz or Amparo seconded. We have 2 seconds. That's how seconds work. Show of hands. Anyone abstaining? Anyone opposed? Great. So we are moving forward with that. Awesome. And now it's time for the chair's report. So thank you everyone for making it today. Everyone who's sick, please feel better. I'm on antibiotics myself for a foot injury. I hope you all had a great summer. And happy belated Labor Day. Happy beginning of the school year. Then during the summer, hopefully, you had some good trips. I took a vacation all the way to the other end of Queens to Rockaway Beach and even spent a night in the hotel because, that was my flight. So far, it was a 50-minute bus ride. So for the board, we had a pretty busy summer too. I think it's the busiest summer, since 2019, since I was on the board. Personnel committee, we were busy. We did some administrative tasks, so proud of us there. Kat Bloomfield did a wonderful job. I don't know if she's online, but as our treasurer, and she was sick as well. But she did a great job, and she's doing a great job. She's continuing to do a great job. We have more to do with our capital and expense budget process. I think that'll be coming up for a vote November-ish. So, but yeah, it's moving, and we're getting some great stuff in there. We had a great CB2 meet and greet at Autumn&Ellie's at Hunters Point. Again, I will go on the record as my favorite burger in all of Western Queens and Queens in general. And thank you, Tanya, Patrick, Mai for the flyer, and everyone who came out for that. Quick check-in on some of the things I wanted to accomplish as chair. And again, thank you for your support last year. Calendar invites. Woo-hoo. Thank you. Thank you, Debbie, for helping with that. That was a big thing. And we'll make sure we start rolling them out for all CB2 meetings. We worked on some internal office processes. The newsletter committee, I think we're in a really good rhythm now. Thank you, Nelly, Patrick and Tanya, and Mai also. We're doing it, I feel like we've tightened that up. Still in progress. Patrick and I are working on a digital process document and a new member onboarding document that I wanted to do. Sometimes the ambition has to take a backseat to the fact that this gig pays free 99 for many hours. But I love serving with you all. Check-in survey. Some of you responded to this a few months ago. I haven't heard from everyone, so I will resend that. But related to that survey, there's a section in there that asks for opt-in about who you want to share your information with, specifically your email. I'm making a policy tonight that all committee chairs will have access to the email for your committee members. So feel free to communicate with your committee members. That said, if someone asks you for a fellow board member's contact information, please let them know. I'm sure we're a community. We know each other from other things. You may have a different relationship, but if somebody's asking about someone's contact information from the context of community board relationship, please just check in with them first. And related to that, related to communications, the only the chair of the community board is allowed to speak to the press unless I delegate that. So if the press comes to you asking for a quote, please check in with me. I'll most likely just delegate it to you because I don't always have time. And that's it. That is up all for my committee. Oh, and sorry, one other announcement. Something we're behind on, public committee membership. If you are not on the community board, you are welcome to apply to be a public member of a committee. So we'll share that link. We'll share that form out. But please fill that out. I have gone myself and spoken to a few of you online, and encouraged you to fill that out. So we'll share that broadly, but the deadline for that will be October 4th of next month. And with that, I will turn to Debbie.
So hard act to follow. We had some of the same things. Welcome back, everybody. Hope everybody had a great summer. We've been working hard. I just want to acknowledge before I give my report that yesterday was 9/11, 23 years. So if we could just give a moment of silence for our responders, that would be appreciated. Thank you. Remember, if you have community complaints, quality of life issues, to let the board office know. We follow up on all complaints and issues. Speaking of that, I'll go to this part of my report. 46th and Greenport Point, the barbecue lady was issued yesterday a summons and her property was vouched again. So we are following up, and that was responded to immediately. You're welcome. I want to thank Hirsch Studios. Mark, welcome back. Your team for the live streaming and the good job that you guys do. So we appreciate all your hard work and thank you for working together with us. Again, just to piggyback what our chairman just said, anybody who changes your information or you move or you have new phone number, new email, please make sure the board office knows. We just like to keep the books and records of the city of New York impeccable, so that this way, if anybody's looking for you, we know how to contact you as well. And make sure that we get all of our reports out to you as quickly as we can. Borough consultations has begun. So we'll be meeting with all the agencies, which is a long process and complicated because they don't do it by district, they do it by borough. And then we have to get some specifics after it. So we try to do that. We had approximately since June, 70 complaints that have come directly into the board office that we've called into 311 and we followed up with the agencies. Our top complaints were sanitation, police related issues, and Department of Transportation, signage, signals, potholes, parks. We thank the council member and our chairman, Anatole. We attended a dog run ribbon cutting with the Parks Commissioner, council member. It was a nice event, and I think the community was very appreciative. We are continuing to post to Facebook. If you see or you want something posted, absolutely let us know. Nothing political, but it has to be related to community. So you will see stuff from the council member, you will see stuff from the borough president, but they're for specific events or event that has happened that you should know about. Which relates to our community. I want to wish all our school children a happy and safe school year. Those who celebrate Rosh Hashanah, happy, healthy. And our next community board meeting is the second Thursday of the month, October 10th at 6:30. Anybody have any questions? Sure, Lisa.
Cemetery?
I have not, but I can follow up with the Parks Department. They do tell us that that they're working on that. That was the last report. So I will follow up. It'd be great to have a Veterans Day event. We can get a more definitive from Parks.
Thank you, Debbie. And also thank you to Carlos today for being our mic runner. Invaluable work. Okay, so we're gonna skip the treasurer's update because Kat is out sick, so we'll do that next month. I think we had a huge section of city planning report, but if you have more, go ahead, Katie.
Hello again, Katie Crawford from the Department of City Planning. I just have a super brief follow-up to the presentation from before. So I will be sharing upcoming engagement events once our dates and times are finalized. So be on the lookout for that. We are also continuing to conduct outreach with community stakeholders of all types. So if there is a nonprofit or community group that's interested in speaking with us, you can definitely send them my way and we will set up a time to meet and talk about the plan and any concerns. And additionally, we have reserved, I guess, about 30 minutes on each of the land use committee agendas every month to discuss the plan and make sure that there is an open dialogue with the land use committee. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, with that done, we'll move on to the land use committee. Just a reminder, your vote is your opinion, and our opinion is on what we are going to submit to DCP in response to the draft scope of work. So we're voting later on our comments to the DCP on their draft plan. All right, go ahead, Christine.
Thanks, and thanks to City Planning for their presentation and for all your meetings with us. We had a very busy summer because we didn't even know until after the last board meeting that this hearing was going to take place in August.
If I may, Christine, also round of applause for Christine for leading the special meeting and the whole process that got us to this letter with a lot of work during the summer. So thank you.
Yeah, it's a complex proposal, and I know that on some measure, there's both the scope of work itself, what we're telling, what we're commenting on that we want to be in the final environmental impact statement. And yet I have to say, because the quote visioning process of last spring really included basically very little information about what the city was contemplating, all of a sudden to see this detailed list of actions kind of triggered a lot of response. And I think what you've been hearing and some of what's in the comments is a response to that. But we also have tried to really look at the draft scope of work, comment on specific language that we think is either, needs correcting or amplifying, and advise of some actions and types of analysis that we hope will be handled differently, or that we would like to see handled differently in the final environmental impact statement. So one thing that I've asked City Planning for is that we would like to see the revised scope of work and also see the final impact. I understand, I think it's in the draft scope of work that when they issue the environmental impact statement, there's actually a 10-day period for comment on that. Although that's nowhere that we've seen in the schedule. But I think given how quickly all this happened and how we really feel that the community board was not engaged in a robust way by City Planning. And I mean, personally, I feel that the whole discussion and planning and visioning process should have been much longer and much more robust. But we're in this situation now, so at least we really want to be aware of where we can take action and make ourselves known going forward, make our opinions known going forward. With all of that said, I don't know how, did everybody, I'll just ask, Did everybody read what we sent out to you a couple of times in different versions? So our goal, I think we can go through it for additional comments. I did get written comments from 3 board members already, Anne Marie, Michael Zurab, and Tom. So I can let you know what their comments were. If anybody wants to suggest anything additional, now's your chance. Otherwise, we hope to take a kind of up or down vote on these comments.
For me, do you mind screen sharing and just like pulling up the document? I just shared it in the chat in Zoom for anyone online. And maybe we can just cover the bullet points, the top line items.
Well,
all right.
Everybody has you're asking them to bring it up for the people online. Yeah, that would be good. Right. I also really want to give a shout out to both Kenny and Pramit, and Riley, who drafted the transportation, but I think one thing that we didn't hear, we heard at the beginning of the meeting from some of the businesses that are not in this particular study area, but are trying to function in Long Island City. But with regard to the IBZ, that the portion of the IBZ that's actually in this study area, we didn't hear very much about that. And I think it's a hugely complicated thing to think about even more residents and legitimately trying to strengthen or support the businesses that are in that area. And Kenny wrote a very thoughtful set of comments about that. And I hope DCP reads them. But it's really, it's one thing to have goals, and it's another thing to be realistic about how all these different functions can function together. That's all I wanted to say. So are there any additional comments? So section 1, should I just kind of summarize each section or just ask for additional comments? Yeah.
Comments by the Land Use Committee that you're presenting to CB2. Does somebody want to second that motion? All right, now we can have discussion now. Danielle.
2 seconds. Should we present or should we? I guess we still.
Yeah, we should still pull it up on the screen and kind of just summarize the top sections.
To ask if so section 1 is really that we support the goals as outlined, the goals of the study, what the city says they want to see in the neighborhood, but we feel that the study omits a lot of reference to what's happened already in the last 25 years in Long Island City, and how many environmental, how much the neighborhood has changed. The history of the neighborhood sort of stops about 40 years ago, I think, if the history that's in that draft scope of work, we think, and so we say this omission in the narrative should be corrected, and that to date, the city has not implemented sufficient infrastructure improvements. And per Tom's comment, I want to add to that, within the context area defined by the study. So, that it really does, that whole area needs to be looked at holistically. I'll just ask, are there any other comments on item 1 on section 1? Okay. Section 2 really has to do with what's stated in the DSOW about, their prior engagement with the community board, which in fact, we feel was virtually non-existent, and we regret. And we hope that, anyway, that's kind of history. Section 3, based on our concerns outlined above about the process to date and its inaccurate characterization, CB2 urges DCP to undertake a much broader discussion of possible actions starting early this fall prior to finalizing any proposed actions to be certified. And that these additional meetings with CB2 and other local advocacy groups should be documented as part of the public record, since we weren't there first. And then section 4 moves to the critical thing, or one of the most critical things, which is the proposed rezoning. I think, and so let's see, Michael suggested that in addition to saying CB2 supports the text amendment to add mandatory inclusionary housing for all rezoned areas, we also add, we also support the expansion of the applicability of the zoning for transit accessibility to the project area. And that just means that I think that developers could get some bonus for implementing transit upgrades to the transit infrastructure as part of their project. Is that correct? Okay. Okay. So that would be added to the text that you all read. I think that the item 1, the task 22 alternatives, is one of the most important points in these comments. I've learned a lot about environmental impact statements from, which can run to the thousands of pages. But in this process, there is a section on alternatives that actually requires the environmental impact statement to analyze alternatives to include a lesser density of alternative if it would have the potential to reduce the impact of the proposed actions while to some extent still meeting the action's stated purpose and need. So we feel that in this case, a mid-density alternative is totally, is totally warranted. It's a much more honest way to engage the community in conversation by having a real quantitative analysis of 2 different scenarios, which are essentially quite different. And that the community deserves that opportunity, not only to look at 2 alternatives, but also that, what else was I going to say? Yeah, that not to do it misses an opportunity to conclude the seeker phase with a truly viable package. If it's only no action and this action, which is a fairly arbitrary, arbitrary set of actions, these rezonings, they don't have to go to 11 stories or 14 stories or 22 stories. Then the conversation, there's no real conversation to allow people to consider what's possible. Okay, and item 4, this proposed massive development contradicts the stated goals of the City of Yes for housing opportunity, which includes spreading additional housing growth more equitably throughout the city. Michael suggested adding, or this is my phrasing of his comment, the concentration of new housing development permitted under the proposed actions would increase rather than decrease this inequity. So it's going to make our community board, the development even more concentrated in our community board relative to all the other community boards in the city, which, is not what was stated in the City of Yes actions that were promoted over the last however many months. I think are there any other comments about zoning before we go on?
And then Michael.
So again, thank you. I appreciate the inclusion about the sewers. My question is about the inclusion about the long-term plan for Newtown Creek with the closure of the combined sewer overflows. I think that's impactful for the environment, and I'm not sure if city planning is going to look at that. I think that's going to increase the problems we're going to have. And then the last item is on page 1 of the document. You speak to the prior population explosion, let's say, in the core area. And I bring this up because even at the many meetings we attended, when they referred to areas in the context area, especially those manufacturing zoned, they failed to even recognize that people live there. And so I'd like to recognize the population explosion that Blissville had, a context area in 2018 where our population doubled and we saw no promises fulfilled, be it green space, infrastructure, development, nothing. So as you call out the population explosion in the core area, please call out the population explosion in one of the context areas. Thank you.
To say context area, and I think as far as the sewers, I think Pramit or the last section articulates a clear set of commitments that were right. So I think Pramit, maybe you can speak to that, but I think if there's a little language that could be added to your section.
Thank you. Yeah, so Tom, you know that we have language in the last section related to sewers. And I would imagine that if sewers are being upgraded, that's not something that's sort of confined to one small area of the neighborhood. They would probably do it in the whole context area, but we can make that more clear and explicit and say, yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can make it more say sewers.
And I actually think that, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Christine, for everything on this. I just want to say on this that this, yeah, obviously you represented the zoning for accessibility stuff correctly. The city of Yes, the context in which I brought that up was more like, and I appreciate maybe this is slightly outside of the scope of this document, but like, we supported City of Yes because we think other neighborhoods should also do their part. And like, while of course it's true that if only LIC builds more housing and City of Yes doesn't pass, the like disparity between our community and the rest of the city is going to increase. I mean, I was hoping we could somehow include just like a gesture of, we think City of Yes should pass in this document to reduce the inequity in housing production that like could accompany like the LIC rezoning basically, or neighborhood plan.
Say someplace that we did support City of Yes.
I mean, yeah, I just wanted to say that's the context in which I meant to reference City of Yes is more like other places should also say yes and not just LIC, but sort of, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, well, I propose it. Yeah, we did extend it a
I just
little.
want to say, we already approved the City of Yes, and this is comments on the draft scope of work. It's not about, it's about what they're going to study further. It's really not our opinion of what any proposal is. It's about the scope of work. So putting something in about the City of Yes has really, what do you want to study? You want them to study whether the City of Yes will impact this neighborhood? They already said it would impact this neighborhood because that's why it was a citywide zoning text amendment. It's its own text amendment. So I don't see, honestly, I don't see how it fits here. I appreciate your sentiment, but I really don't see how it fits in this context. You wanted to say it, but it doesn't fit in our comments.
Okay.
Yep, let's
Can we move to? That's really fine.
Yep.
Sorry?
Yeah, we're still discussing, well, I think we need to present before I think that's part of the discussion, right? People haven't seen everything. Exactly. Yep.
Okay, so section 5 totally opposes the disposition actions and argues for the city retaining ownership of the DOE property and the DOT property as well, both for reuse of the DOE building and for incorporation of the DOT property into open space along the waterfront. And I think we also point to we understand that the DOE building is very large and that it's probably not realistic, although you could have the goal of occupying it all next year with beautiful new uses, but that a phased rehabilitation and reuse of the building really has been done elsewhere, and the Brooklyn Army Terminal is a great example, and it really benefits the city, and it's probably the most sustainable form of development that you could come up with. And it also sort of gives space for, as the community develops and needs are identified and providers are identified, to incorporate those uses on the waterfront. Are there any other comments on that? Good. Yeah.
We're talking here about the preservation, particularly of the DOE building. Yeah. I mean, since this is a plan to study all the options, I don't want us to rule out the possibility of creating something different there, which would allow us to have more housing, ideally with, mixed income integrated, what's the term, income integrated housing, because I just think that should be included on the options, because housing, we've said.
Okay, well,
housing
that's
is
a
really
different
important.
point of view. I mean, that's a different point of
Right.
view. And so I don't know, as a community board, if we want to take a vote on part of that.
Well,
because-
I'm only saying as a list of options, this is setting it up as if this is the only way to go. That we've got to take this large building and try to, whatever.
That is what it's saying.
Yeah. well,
I mean, it's saying it's
disagreeing.
not the only way to go. It's saying this is what the community board recommends.
But since this is a proposal to study, all I'm saying is include that, don't write off that possibility of doing something different, not. Yes. Could
Are you
phrase-
suggesting that a friendly amendment be made that says at the end, DOT owns site for public recreation space and possibly affordable housing?
Yes, I think what I also am saying, I agree very much with not, selling off the property to private developers. That's not the point. But if we could get some project going, which would be more, a slightly different purpose, but still retaining, it's the only area, the only properties that are city-owned that we have control over. That's the point. I don't think we should cede that to.
I'm not sure what you're proposing. Are you saying you don't? I'm really not quite understanding what you're.
I mean, there's a few problems with that. I mean, it's an admirable goal for sure. But it first of all, it's building it on the last land that we have for resiliency. It's not the building as it is, utilizing it as it is not appropriate for residential. It's appropriate for industry and artisan work and so on. But to tear it down is sort of, there's so much stored carbon there, and to tear it down and then to have to build up something big, apart from it just not being practical, it's environmentally, sort of poor planning. The broader point is that one of the things that we're talking about is the fact that we're already overstressed in that area specifically with whether it's affordable or not affordable. Long Island City is doing its full share and more of being the largest growing area in the country. And one of the things where some of us are calling for, at least, is to push that back away from the waterfront for a lot of reasons. But we're sort of not really even talking, as Lisa says, it's not a matter of expressing our opinion. It's a matter of what we're asking the plan to study. And the plan is already studying the idea of residential development along the waterfront. So we don't need to tell them that it's already in their plan. We're looking at a kind of milder alternative. In fact, we're not even saying an alternative. We're saying in addition to that plan that you have, please look at these other ideas. So I'm a little reluctant to reinforce what they're already saying they're going to do. It's my opinion on.
I certainly hear and appreciate that perspective. I just think I don't want it to be written out of the scope of what they're going to study, because this is a study, not a.
It's not just,
transaction.
it's, I think what I was trying to.
If I may, if that is, Roz, your friendly amendment, Lisa, do you accept that friendly amendment? Okay, so, discussion done. I will let that, I will end discussion about that point here, if I may. Thank you.
Okay. So I guess we keep discussing, we take the, or,
Yeah, I would just quickly go through.
okay, all right. Yeah, so the last top level item, the waterfront, and I won't go into all of the verbiage on this, but just, this is such an opportunity, and it's an opportunity for the city to do it right. And it's an opportunity for this waterfront to be more resilient than any other structure. And I guess we're just really urging that it be and that the success, as Lisa pointed out, Lisa Gorin, that the success of the areas to the south have been by incorporating this public walkway, which is mandated by zoning, with actual parks. You know, that we feel that this really deserves a very creative and public design that's presented to the public, and a real vision to do it right. Okay. Then the industrial business zone, Kenny, do you want to talk about that briefly, or just?
Most of it's, contained in I guess the page or so that's there. I think that the singular point that I want to make is that they're talking about increasing the height and density there to what they call, as one of the speakers said, high and higher levels, whatever that means. The idea that would not push businesses out makes no sense to me at all. It doesn't. I mean, I've had a business here for close to 45 years, and I've seen, that's just not how it works. We've had the largest development here in Long Island City, and prices haven't come down. The theory about supply and demand probably makes sense over a period of like 50 to 100 years. But the question you have to ask is how much suffering and how much displacement and how much loss of jobs and businesses will happen on the way to that larger goal. It's a larger goal that brings in a future economy, but it hurts whoever has been here, whoever is here now. The IBZ was being warehoused for years and years and years, and then finally we had kind of a few small businesses started, a few businesses followed after that. A hostel started there, some cafes started. They opened up that beautiful area where the glacial rock was. There's already economic viability going there. The idea of suddenly saying, okay, now we're going to create bigger opportunities for developers there is going to just really stop everything going on now and just substitute a newer, more expensive future economy on top of what's already there. So I'm very, as a business owner, I'm near the IBZ, but I know business owners within the IBZ. And when they learn about this proposal, they're terrified.
Yeah. Riley, do you want to?
Sure.
So in section 8, the proposed street remappings and anticipated transit improvements. In the plan itself, the remappings are around that Department of Education building, just small streets that would be demapped and remapped. So it's very hard to tell exactly what the plan is there. So yeah. So this section is mainly about it, where a holistic approach to planning a neighborhood streets, especially if you're building super tall buildings, the sidewalks and roadways are where people congregate and where a city finds its life. So using the DOT streets plan for this year and the streets master plan, these are just the tools and the goals of the city, just laid over what I read through the scope of work, mainly that we have tools to achieve Vision Zero and make every roadway safer, that we should make it a goal to connect people to transit. I just detail things there. Also, just some kind of shooting for the moon and looking for a Sunnyside Yards Long Island Railroad station. And maybe, yeah. So there's some stuff there that you could read. Maybe expanding the New York City ferry service with a new stop in the area, and speaking with Julie Wan, maybe some communities that we think want it don't actually want it that much, but it would be worth studying, especially if we're adding 14,000 people to this area. Complete the Queens Waterfront Greenway, since that section of Vernon Boulevard is not much of a greenway. And then cycling and micromobility. Our goal in the Transportation Committee is the same goal as DOT's, which is that we have to increase cycling and micromobility. And in order to do that, it needs to be safe and easy, and that bike lanes have to reduce conflict with automobiles. So all of this should be built into the streets as they're built, and it should be planned, and that's the city's responsibility. Finally, I say that every New Yorker is a pedestrian, and that the neighborhood sidewalks have to be built wide, and they have to accommodate all uses. And as we talk about a lack of green space, we have to remember that a street is a space, and it doesn't always have to just serve cars and trucks, that we can ask the city to determine where a street might serve, what might have better uses. If it were a school street or just an open street close to traffic, build plazas, build mini parklets. And cars and trucks are a part of this street city life, but in a highly dense area like this, they cannot be the most important. So as I said earlier, compromises and compromises. That's transportation.
Okay, and lastly, for me, do you want, so this is something we've talked about a lot. We actually appended it to our, as a, as a condition of our approval for City of Yes, but it's much more expanded now, if you want.
Yeah, it's pretty much stuff that we already talked about. We're basically saying that any zoning changes that are going to happen that allow higher density need firm city commitments before we proceed. If we're going to get 14,000 new housing units, then we need better community facilities, parks, transportation improvements, sewers, medical facilities, all sorts of stuff that we know our neighborhood needs. So we're basically saying that these investments need to happen, and these commitments need to happen before we give our approval.
And I would just say, relative to Tom's comment, that under sewer and water infrastructure upgrades, we should add replace antiquated sewers and install sustainable stormwater management throughout the context area, just so that we're not just limiting it to the study area. Okay, and then I think Anne Marie, did you have something? Oh, just that we move the open, you just had another item under open spaces and parks, which was to identify specific areas for open spaces that relate to neighborhood density. So I think this speaks to the inland areas where even the strategies don't seem to be acknowledging the need for additional inland parks, not just making the parks that are there a little better. Okay.
Time check. We have a hard stop in 20 minutes. So really, if we can, I think there were two more actual questions.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
So Laura, Camille, one more. Anybody else? One more? After that,
Just add public pools.
Okay, great.
remember, specific requests are always better.
I was gonna ask for a pool too. But I will add a tennis court as well, like other and broadly other recreational facilities.
Is that okay? Active recreation facilities? Other.
Ultimate frisbee, bro.
Okay. So yes, we added swimming pools.
Cricket.
Okay. So, we have a motion, we have a second. Okay.
No clarification.
Is there an opportunity to consider like what the impact will be on current residents and businesses? To the point made earlier, it feels like this will be very challenging to live through. This upzoning
That's
as a resident.
the whole point, right? That's the study.
We like to actually like be here while the construction is happening, while the change and evolution is taking place, not just for the future people, but to live through that process.
So what are you suggesting any additional language? I mean, I agree, it's gonna be a mess. Where is it? Oh, okay. Kenny, you want to point us to it?
Hold on. Number 10, infrastructure strain and health concerns.
Okay.
Upzoning historically leads to an intensive long-term development period. The additional construction, increased population density could also exacerbate environmental degradation. There'll be higher traffic volumes, higher demand on the already crowded subways, the burdened sewer system. Et cetera. And I say the construction period will lead to inefficiencies, disruption, and create air pollution and noise.
Okay.
All right. Yep.
All right, roll call vote. Amparo Albalbay. Nelly Afshar. Anatol Ashraf. John Bahia. Are you abstain? Sure. We need to abstain for causing it.
Really, it's controversial.
No? Okay. Yeah, Marie Baranowski. Carisha absent, Nick absent, Kat absent, Danielle Brecker. Carlos Castel Croak. Lisa Charles. Okay. Osman Chowdhury. Okay. Warren Davis. Lisa Deller. Maury Gallinoy. Somnath Kamir. Okay. Dr. Raz Giannousis. Alexandra Gonzalez.
Yes.
Camille Gray. Kenny Greenberg. Mohammed Hossein. Christine Hunter. Leland Kendall. Badrun Khan. Sure. Okay. Diana Kitchler absent. James Kim.
Yes.
Prameet Kumar. Tom Matoutsas. Eric Narberg. Andy Olivares. Zishan Ott.
Yes.
Riley Owens. Jolly Patel. She wasn't here in the first place. Okay. Maya Saab. Okay. Norberto Sedana. Laura Shepard. Ryan Smith, yes. Caroline Spitzer. Michaela Thomas,
Yes.
Leticia Vasquez. Michael Zurab. Okay.
Thanks, everyone.
And Riley, 2 minutes for a transportation committee update, please, if you have one. You've been doing great work, so yeah, stay there. Fine if you like.
Just a quick update from transportation, just because there's a few major safety projects happening in our district, and we haven't seen much happening over the summer since we last met. Queens Boulevard, street safety improvements and protected bike lane is starting within 2 weeks from east to west. Some loading zones were adjusted as they talked to businesses, but the plan remains. The South Outer Roadway is still due, waiting on the construction to finish on the upper deck, but DOT is pushing ahead with things that they can do on the on our side, which I was thinking should probably happen before the marathon goes through there. So maybe that's a deadline. And then finally, the Blissville Greenway is also moving ahead. It's being installed this fall, Laurel Hill Boulevard to Borden, including that Greenpoint Avenue or the Greenpoint Bridge intersection. Some lane widths and buffer zones were adjusted, and that's it. Everything's moving ahead. Thank you.
Awesome. Since we have time, 2 minutes, Laura, for environment. And Carlos, if you would.
Yeah. Back in June, we had a presentation from the Little Manila Park Improvement Project. Really lovely proposal to upgrade, steward, and program the green spaces along the BQE just off of Roosevelt Avenue, and really partner and showcase the culture of the Filipino community over there. So we wrote a letter of support.
Awesome. Yeah.
Now, contact the board yet to do a with Newtown Creek Alliance and folks in Greenpoint and folks on the Queen side regarding green asphalt, who is still poisoning the folks in Blissville, not complying with New York State pollution laws. So we're going to have a an event. So want to include you. Thank you.
The update, Maury? Okay. We're going to end before 10. I know I believe in us.
Our last meeting with the Small Business Committee, we had stakeholders involved in the community, small business leaders, organizations, the bids, et cetera. We started discussing this new requirement that small businesses will have to register with the Department of United States Government Financial Crimes Enforcement, and nobody knows about it, or almost nobody knows about it. And small businesses will be fined $500 a day if they don't do that. So we worked with different stakeholders, including Congresswoman Velasquez's office, who took and spearheaded and hold. We're going to have a video online about it from her office, but held the whole event and taught people with representatives from the agency, from the federal agency, how to actually file so you don't get fined. We have a meeting coming up on the 24th at 5 p.m. and we're going to have, I can't remember her name offhand, but she's coming in from LaGuardia Small Business Development Center. So if people are looking to start a business or have a business already and need ideas, resources, help, counseling for their small business, they can come to this meeting and learn more about the resources there.
Awesome. And an
members.
update for you and for Small Business Committee, Leland Kendall has agreed to be your vice chair for a Small Business Committee. So also first Nepalese vice chair of a committee for CB2. So congratulations. Yeah, Mike.
what constitutes a small business as the owner of a very small LLC? Am I a business? Because you're getting me worried.
Right. All LLCs, you have to do it. But amazing. Before 10 o'clock, 9:55. Thank you, everyone. All right, Ryan, Tom, and thank you, everyone. See you next month, October 10th. Look out for the public committee membership form and board members.